the dragon's heart, coveted by all on this continent, yet exclusively possessed by a family named Ragnar, only because dragon blood flows through their veins. This allowed the Ragnar to awake the dragon's heart while developing special physiques, granting them innate top-tier talent in magic, strength, and swordsmanship. But by coincidence, I, the Ragnar family heir, never awakened the dragon's heart. Little did I know this was all the doing of my mentor who taught me swordsmanship for 20 years. Now, seeing my Rose Palace completely burned to the ground, my mentor Landon also removed his hypocritical mask. He said, "A nickname Ragnar Waste truly suits you well, young Master Tir. Not only is your talent poor, all these years you never once suspected the swordsmanship I taught you was flawed." Hearing this, I angrily replied, "So from the beginning you approached me as a teacher. Your goal was to forge me into a true waste, just to betray our Rose Palace to others." Unexpectedly, in the very next moment, Landon swung his sword and severed one of my arms. He then said, "Even now, how can you still think it's all my fault? In Ragnar, where the strong rule, only victors deserve to live. If you had the continent's greatest talent, no matter how I taught you, you could have at least protected Rose Palace, or even saved your mother who begged me daily to teach you properly." As Landon finished speaking, he ordered his men to drag in a cold corpse. It was my mother. I understood that Ragnar lived by the principle and respect the strong, despise the weak, but I would never forgive anyone who harmed my mother. Yet just as I raised my sword to strike Landon, my heart was suddenly pierced by a rapidly approaching blade. Seeing Landon bow respectfully to that person, I guessed he must be the mastermind behind this betrayal. As my consciousness faded, how desperately I wanted to see clearly who that person was. At the same time, in the depths of my dark consciousness, a data panel lit up. Before I could read what it said, a sharp sword suddenly thrust toward my eyes. I saw Landon, who had made me the Ragnar Waste, standing before me. He said, "Today's lesson ends here." I was confused. Was this the so-called life flashing before my eyes before death? Ironically, after death, what came to mind was Landon's former appearance. Just as this thought formed, the panel in my consciousness appeared again and displayed a tutorial task, instructing me to punch Landon in the face. After repeatedly testing, I discovered Landon couldn't see this thing. Although I didn't understand what was happening, surely the gods wanted me to vent my anger before death, so I respectfully obliged. To my surprise, the feeling of the punch felt absolutely real. Before I could think further, Landon suddenly became filled with killing intent. His sword violently struck toward my waist. He said, "Ah, young master, I believe I just told you today's lesson is over. I understand your feelings, but you don't have much time left. There's no way you can improve dramatically before the awakening ceremony. But let me advise you, the Ragnar family has never fought with fists, and never used their mentors as objects for venting anger." Meanwhile, others training nearby began mocking me, blaming his teacher for his lack of talent. Is he really a Ragnar descendant? He must have been picked from a garbage heap. Hearing these snide remarks, feeling the dust of the training ground, and the pain from my waist where Landon struck me, I suddenly realized this probably wasn't a vision before death, but rather my dead self returning to the timeline of 10 years ago when I was 17. At that moment, the panel lit up again, because I completed the tutorial task. As a reward, my Ragnar talent would soon be activated. Then the words, "Shant, will you receive the reward now?" appeared. Without hesitation, I selected "Oh yes." Instantly, light radiated from my heart as the reward was distributed. The panel showed that from now on, all my abilities would improve at an astonishing rate. It seems I've awakened a power-up system that only exists in novels. But the only way to prove all this actually exists is to meet him. Meanwhile, at Rose Palace, Landon was discussing my swordsmanship talent with the palace master. Landon said, "Saitai will do my best to make him perform exceptionally at the awakening ceremony 5 months from now." Palace master Cecilia took out a bag of gold coins and said, "I'm counting on you, Landon. Please put more effort into my Tir. I've always believed he could become one of Ragnar's most outstanding swordsmen." After Landon left, he continuously mocked Cecilia. Only a fool could birth such a great fool. Well, it's all good for me. Not only generous payment, but also the title of Ragnar Direct Bloodline Instructor. And for selling information about Tir and hindering his growth, that person will guarantee my future. Young Master Tir, you truly are my great benefactor. But just then, Landon's expression turned awkward. I was charging furiously in his direction. But my target wasn't him. It was my mother. After tightly embracing her, I wept. "To Mother, I've missed you." This familiar feeling convinced me I had truly returned to the past, 10 years ago. Faced with my mother's confusion, I didn't explain much, because from this moment on, I would change the future, even though I was still weak at this stage. The awakening of the system would surely let me possess everything in the Ragnar family, even the entire Imperial continent. Landon, just you wait. I will absolutely make you die a miserable death. Time quickly reached nightfall. I was now at training ground number 4, completing another task issued by the system, to train my physical body to its limits. Although my mind was filled with thoughts of revenge against Landon, with my weak body, that would be impossible. I needed to become stronger first. In my previous life, due to my insufficient strength, I was assigned to a team called the Black Snow Intelligence Organization, but this allowed me to apply what I learned there now. Blood-based secret potions that enabled dramatic physical growth, secret technique books whose authenticity would only be verified in the future, and extreme training methods I had once abandoned. From the moment I gained the Ragnar talent, I knew I would complete all the tasks I hadn't done in my previous life, and swing all the strikes I couldn't deliver before. This was my desire for strength. Before I knew it, I had trained for almost 7 days and nights. Meanwhile, Evelyn, the administrator of training ground number 4, sat above watching me. She was an upper-tier swordsman, former vice-captain of the White Dragon Knights, who retired to become administrator of training ground number 4 after losing her left arm. She wondered to herself, despite being being a waste. He trains so diligently. Does he truly lack any Ragnar family talent? Seeing the completion progress on my panel reach 97%. The force of my swings became even greater. I dared not slack off for a moment, because last night, just wanting to rest a bit, I discovered the progress bar could decrease, but this also explained the task's true meaning. It could only be completed by pushing my physical body to its limit. Thus, in the second before suffocation, I pushed the progress bar to 100%. As the task completion panel appeared, a feeling of weakness instantly surged through my entire body. As a reward, I would receive the dragon's heart, and due to my quick completion, I would additionally receive my previous life's 10 years of magical power. At the moment I was about to faint, I clicked and claim now. The next second, an enormous magical power rushed into my body. This scene shocked Evelyn, who was watching nearby. Scene change, I woke up in a dim room. After asking where I was, Evelyn entered and said, "Don't worry, young Master Tir, this is the rest room of training ground number 4. But even as a Ragnar descendant, your body can't withstand such crazy training." I thanked her for this and told her not to worry about me. But just as Evelyn handed me a water cup, she suddenly became serious. "Toint, young master, you should know, before the awakening ceremony, the Ragnar family has clear rules prohibiting the private use of magical power." Hearing this, I nodded in agreement. Explaining this was because it could easily cause magical core overload. She said, "Then you should also be clear about the consequences of breaking this taboo. In the moment you lost consciousness, I sensed magical power fluctuations from your body. Could it be that you have activated your magical core?" It seems Evelyn witnessed me claiming my reward last night, but I still had a way to handle this. In this life, I've awakened the dragon's heart. How could I possibly be deterred by a mere taboo punishment? The dragon's heart is a dragon's heart that can store vast amounts of magical power for Ragnar warriors with dragon bloodlines. This is the ultimate dream, a shortcut to becoming an absolute ruler. For ordinary people without dragon ancestry, the magical core is in the lower abdomen, and forcibly placing it in the heart would result in death. Just then, I remember that Evelyn was known for her absolute principles. She didn't care about others' strength or status, and couldn't tolerate injustice or despicable behavior. It was also because of her inflexibility that the palace master revoked her qualification as a direct instructor. Then I questioned her with the tone of a master. "Can you guarantee everything you just said is correct? Would you really execute me based on a momentary occurrence? If your judgment is wrong, can you bear the consequences? Don't forget, I hold Ragnar's primary inheritance right." Evelyn stated that regardless of whether she would be executed for misjudgment, she must test me now. As magical power dispersed from Evelyn's hand, there was no resonance at my lower abdomen, which meant, in her eyes, I hadn't awakened a magical core. The next moment, Evelyn knelt and said, "I made a hasty misjudgment. I am willing to pay with my life." The reason Evelyn didn't discover it was because the dragon's heart can be hidden according to the owner's will, meaning I could conceal my magical power at will. The fact that humans could use the dragon's heart would only be discovered several years later, so Evelyn naturally couldn't discover I had awakened the dragon's heart. Looking at her now, I pondered. Having Evelyn owe me a favor wasn't bad. I said, "It's fine, you only did what you should have done. And how many people would stake their lives to seek the truth?" "Well done, Evelyn." Time quickly moved to a few days later. During these days, I was still being carelessly taught by Landon. From stance to sword swings, everything felt awkward. To escape this situation, I thought of a good idea. I suddenly broke my training sword in half, saying, "What you teach is garbage. I don't want to learn any of it. Besides, with your pitiful skills, how did you become a mid-level swordsman?" Mocked by me, Landon angrily said, "Say that again if you dare." I said, "What, you enjoy hearing it? You're purely a waste who can't even defeat low-level magical beasts. Also, you're fired. Get out of my sight right now." Hearing this, Landon used the contract period as leverage, refusing to accept this sudden dismissal. I responded, "I'll compensate you whatever amount you want, just leave quickly." My goal was to get rid of Landon, then find a chance to investigate who was instructing him. Meanwhile, the system panel assigned me another task, defeat Landon. However, before I could propose settling the dismissal through a duel, Evelyn said, "You should resolve your grudge the Ragnar way. No need to take this to the law hall. After the outcome is decided, the loser follows the winner's command." Hearing this proposal, Landon was naturally pleased, believing he couldn't possibly lose to me. He said, "Great idea. I, your direct mentor, have to teach you how to be a good person." Evelyn said, "Very well, the duel is set for 1 week from now, at training ground number 4 sent." Afterward, I found Evelyn and asked why she made this decision on my behalf. Evelyn said, Since you chose to sever ties with him, you must do it thoroughly. Because the people behind Landon will help him, so dismissing him won't solve anything." After questioning Evelyn further, I learned she had investigated after seeing Landon teach me strange swordsmanship. That's how she discovered the unknown truth. That man's employer was someone from Winter Cypress Palace. Indeed, just like in my previous life, it was still due to that annoying power competition. I really wanted to tear those people to pieces. But Evelyn also told me not to worry about the outcome, as she would help me with all her might. She said, "Although teaching you swordsmanship over Landon violates ethics, he doesn't deserve the title of Ragnar Direct Instructor." Scene change. Time quickly arrived at the day of the duel. Landon and I stood on training ground number 4, with onlookers predicting the match would end in 3 rounds. After all, I was the family acknowledged to Ragnar waste. How could I possibly defeat mid-level swordsman Landon? Landon said, "If the young master apologizes, we can put this behind us. Don't stake your life on pride." I replied, "Sinai should be the one saying that. If you don't want to become a one-armed swordsman, accept your dismissal." At this moment, killing intent radiated from Landon's eyes. After this incident, he immediately sought out his employer behind this. The other party gave him a new task, to pretend to accidentally kill me during our duel. The law hall didn't know about this duel, so even if an an accident occurred, Landon wouldn't face severe consequences. As my teacher, Landon said he would give me the initiative, letting me attack first. I said, "If you're so eager to die, I'll grant your wish." As our swords clashed fiercely, 3 rounds quickly passed. This stunned those who had mocked me earlier. What's going on? How is the Ragnar waste holding his own against a mid-level swordsman? Meanwhile, Landon continued to mock me while fighting. What's wrong, young master? Can't handle even a mid-level swordsman you look down upon? Although Landon admitted my strength had indeed improved recently, defeating him was still unrealistic. Little did he know that, after nearly 30 rounds of exchanges, Landon finally realized something was wrong. A waste had somehow blocked all his attacks. As he pondered what was happening, I seriously asked, "Who instructed you to approach me? Don't think I don't know you were sent to deliberately teach me garbage lessons." Seeing Landon hesitate to respond, I answered for him, "It's Winter Cypress Palace, right? If I'm not mistaken." Hearing this, Landon was shocked that his plan had been exposed. I seized the moment of his distraction to let him taste the feeling of losing an arm first. After cutting off Landon's arm, I returned to him exactly what he said to me in my previous life. "The reason things turned out this way is because your false mid-level swordsmanship is too weak. In Ragnar, where the strong rule, only victors deserve to live." Thus, I ended Landon's life with my own hands, completing the task issued by the system. And since I exceeded the target, I was offered an additional reward. Little did I know that the moment I clicked accept, a tremendous killing intent suddenly descended from above my head. As this person landed, the training ground shattered, stones flew, and magical power erupted. Looking back, I was surprised to discover the arrival was Urius, one of Ragnar family's 9 dragons, the magic dragon, and current captain of the White Dragon Knights. Why was he here? When did he start watching this duel? The spectators were also startled, all aware of the magic dragon's strength. Evelyn said, "Couldn't Urius enter the training ground normally? Now I have to clean up again." Usually, the 9 dragons would suddenly appear for only 2 reasons: magical beast invasion or family crimes. But there were neither magical beasts nor troublemakers here, so Urius shouldn't have come. Unexpectedly, in the next second, Urius's expression switched instantly. Then he slapped my back heavily and praised, "Sheer, your methods are truly swift and merciless. I shall call you the king of backstabbing, chatting." But on second thought, Urius reconsidered. This title is not good, as Landon deserved execution. However, this wasn't Urius's purpose for coming. He came to invite me to join his White Dragon Knights. This announcement instantly electrified the atmosphere. Lord Urius invited a waste to join his team? Wasn't the awakening ceremony not yet started? Wasn't this too risky? Indeed, without activating a magical core, Urius couldn't confirm my potential. After all, some people are naturally skilled with swords, but have low magical power. But to everyone's surprise, for this coveted invitation, I merely replied with 3 words, "I refuse." This embarrassed Urius, who quickly made up an excuse and left. Soon this incident spread throughout Ragnar's streets. Those who once looked down on me gradually changed their reference from Ragnar Waste to a young master Tir. This news also reached Winter Cypress Palace. Palace Master Emil was now greatly troubled. "This is truly a problem. That waste actually killed Landon. What about our future plans?" The person standing behind reassured, "And no need to worry. Landon was just a fake mid-level swordsman after all." This person was Emil's brother Edward, also one of the 9 dragons, the Ridge Dragon. But what Emil worried about wasn't Landon's death, but the chain reaction following the duel. Now not only had the magic dragon noticed him, but Evelyn was personally teaching him swordsmanship. We could no longer hinder his growth. If Tir starts to show potential, perhaps our plan to occupy Rose Palace will become more difficult. Just then, someone entered from outside. It was Emil's son Eswin, who said, "Oh mother, family head Cecilia won't pay attention to that waste over such a small matter." Emil said, "The best way to occupy Rose Palace without angering the family head is to make her son a complete waste." Eswin said, "And the magic dragon and Evelyn naturally care more about the weak. No matter how strong they are, they can't make a waste strong." Edward angrily said, "To Eswin, don't be careless with anyone, especially those with Ragnar bloodlines." Eswin said, all right, I understand. Since you're so worried, why don't I go over first and let that waste know his place?" Meanwhile, on the other side, Evelyn's first swordsmanship lesson had just ended. She then asked, "Why not join the White Dragon Knights for more professional training?" Actually, refusal was just my facade. In my previous life, my greatest wish was to join the White Dragon Knights. Considering the first place prize at the awakening ceremony could fulfill this wish, joining now would be too much of a loss. I couldn't give up the chance to demonstrate my strength to everyone. I said, "Teacher Evelyn, I refuse because I'm not qualified yet." Evelyn found this somewhat amusing, as her former captain had never misjudged people. To understand the insight eye ability, I used this skill on Evelyn. The next second, her information displayed accurately on the system. This skill would certainly prove useful in many situations in the future. Just then, someone suddenly called out to me. He introduced himself as Sybil Dre from the Southern Checkpoint, with an important matter to discuss. This person looked rather fierce, so as a precaution, I used inside eye on him. To my surprise, he had strong admiration for me, and especially wanted to practice with me. Then the system assigned me the final beginner task, to get rid of the Ragnar Waste title. Sybil Dre really spoke without thinking. He said to my face that he previously fully agreed with my Ragnar Waste nickname, but after seeing my demonstrated strength was the result of my own efforts, his attitude changed. He said, "Shung young master Tir, I will follow you until death. It was your appearance that rekindled my fighting spirit after I had given up, so please give me a chance to practice with you." In the past, I might have doubted his sincerity, but with insight eye, I could see his situation clearly. Moreover, behind Sybil were many others with the same thoughts. It seems after I defeated Landon, and the rumor of Lord Urius's favor spread, those who previously didn't acknowledge me now changed their attitude to admiration. This was truly unexpected. So many people willing to follow me already. Before becoming the Ragnar family head, I indeed needed some supporters, and I needed to complete this final beginner task by this chance today. With Evelyn's permission, I agreed to an impromptu practice session with Sybil. As Sybil initiated the attack with his sword, I first defended to probe his strength, but he had excessively underestimated himself. His speed was fast and his strikes powerful. With such strength he called himself the South's Waste. My previous self probably couldn't have withstood even one round, but now defeating an opponent of this level was easier than drinking water. With my full force strike, Sybil was sent flying dozens of meters away. Unable to continue fighting, he surrendered. Looking at my reflection in the sword, I suddenly had an interesting idea. I used the inside eye on myself. Immediately, a panel about me appeared before my eyes. The system informed me that since I discovered my own ability values, future abilities would be marked numerically. My talent area still had 4 empty slots, meaning my limit would far exceed my imagination. By continuing to complete system tasks, I would obtain the remaining 4 unknown talents. Thanks to the dragon's heart and my previous life's magical power, my magic was quite high. Only my luck value was strikingly noticeable. It was negative. This made me wonder if I had been cursed to cause this, but it also explained the real reason for my previous life's misfortune. I needed to find a way to improve it quickly. Meanwhile, seeing her disciples' growth, Evelyn felt very gratified. This was truly a perfect starting point. In Ragnar, where the strong rule, there are only 2 reactions, admiration or jealousy, and everyone gathered here exemplified the former. They all developed admiration for young Master Tir. I prepared to continue practicing with them. I was eager to know what talent I would receive after completing the final beginner task. To my surprise, after defeating the next opponent, I discovered something special. By defeating someone who wanted to practice with me and gaining their approval, my luck value would increase. So I decided to enter massive grinding mode, practicing with everyone here who admired me, to see if I could at least bring my luck value back to 0 and remove the title that had accompanied me for a lifetime. But to my great surprise, although my luck value indeed increased as wished, after nearly 20 battles, the task progress bar had only increased by 1%. If my guess was correct, those I just defeated had already begun to admire me from the bottom of their hearts. It seems I needed to find opponents who looked down on me or even stronger ones. Just then, the heavy footsteps of armor suddenly approached from in front of me. He said, "Now it's my turn to learn from you." Seeing him instantly filled me with amazement. The others were even more intimidated by his presence. This person was Wellington Nasio, one of the North's 4 lords, the Silver Lion, a true swordsmanship genius. He said, "I came to experience Ragnar's swordsmanship before the awakening ceremony. Please forgive my abruptness, young Master Tir." Hearing this, I first used inside eye on Wellington. Finding he had no ill intentions, he genuinely came to practice with me after hearing of my deeds. Setting aside whether I could complete the task, being able to practice with one of the North's 4 lords, even if I lost, would clarify my current strength. As we smiled at each other, we immediately unleashed our full power strikes simultaneously. I had thought this would be a prolonged battle, but the next second's explosion erased that thought. As the dust settled, all onlookers were shocked. I couldn't withstand even one round against Wellington. But this made sense. After all, the North's 4 lords were the most promising apprentice swordsmen at the awakening ceremony. I said, and I lost. The moment my sword broke, I knew the outcome. Wellington shook his head and said, "Finis was an excellent match. Your sword was simply too old. So considering all factors, I should be the one who lost." Through our mutual modesty, I felt he could potentially become a worthy friend. He said, "I hope we can have a fair duel next time." I replied, "Agreed. It's a promise." Having gained approval from one of the North's 4 lords, the beginner task progress instantly increased by 5%, and my luck value improved by 10 points. Wellington was truly strong, both a genius and hardworking. In this life, I had indeed become much stronger through the system and my previous life's memories. But the moment we practiced together, I understood I was still far from having the strength to take first place at the awakening ceremony. Just then, Wellington mentioned he had other business with me. He handed me an invitation and said, "I'd like to invite you to attend the Azure Dragon Party with me." I said, "An Azure Dragon Party is famous. Someone like me isn't qualified to attend." Wellington quickly dismissed this. "And what are you saying? For someone with Ragnar bloodline, this isn't such an impressive gathering." I couldn't understand Wellington's intentions, but the Azure Dragon Party was a small group centered around Eswin. Many who looked down on me would be there, perfect for completing my task. It was also a good opportunity to observe Winter Cypress Palace and Eswin's movements, so I had no reason to refuse this invitation. I said, "Then I'll take this. Remember to pick me up on your way there." Wellington laughed. "You really know how to take advantage. Feel free to ask me anything you don't understand." Meanwhile, at Rose Palace, upon learning I received an invitation to the Azure Dragon Party, my mother immediately became busy. She summoned the family's best ceremonial tailor. Seeing this, I asked with surprise, "Point mother, what are you doing?" Cecilia excitedly said, "This gathering is where that cunning Emil's son Eswin and geniuses like Wellington congregate. Even the Senate is interested in the Azure Dragon Party, so your appearance absolutely cannot give them any excuse to criticize." Then Cecilia personally took out a tape measure to take my measurements. She said, "See, no, you're perfect in etiquette, but dress and upbringing are 2 different things. I'll help you with this. Don't forget, your mother used to be an actress." Hearing this, my heart felt as if it was severely pinched. My identity was that of a lowly, illegitimate child. Mother always felt ashamed about this label attached to me, but it wasn't her fault at all. I then said to my mother, "Having such a useless son must be difficult for you." Cecilia immediately burst into tears. She said, "T-Mom has always believed you would succeed. You are not the Ragnar waste others speak of." I knew these were words only a mother would say to me, but after thoroughly thoroughly crushing the Azure Dragon Party, the title, Tragnar Waste 10, would disappear from me forever. Time quickly passed to half a month later, today being the day to attend the Azure Dragon Party. Wellington had arranged for a carriage to wait outside the city gates early. Who would have thought that when he saw me next, he was completely stunned. He said, "Are you really Tir? This attire makes you look like a completely different person." I said, "Wellington, stop joking around. This was arranged by my mother. Let's hurry into the carriage." After that sparring session, Wellington actually came specially to train with me every day, and our relationship began to grow closer. It was just hard on Evelyn, who initially started taking disciples again for my sake. Now, not only did she have to teach my new little fan, but even people from other families had to get involved. During our journey, Wellington suddenly told me something. He said, this invitation was entrusted to him by Eswin to pass on to me, and to welcome me, he had specially prepared an interesting program. To this, I just smiled without much response. It seems Wellington didn't know that the relationship between Eswin and me was extremely hostile. Scene change. I finally came back to this damned Winter Cypress Palace, the place where the mastermind who instructed Landon to hinder my growth and ultimately took over Rose Palace resides. At this point, Wellington told me that Eswin's mentioned program would take place at the entrance. I knew this definitely wouldn't be anything good. The reason Eswin sent Wellington to invite me was because my reputation had begun to soar recently, and he definitely wanted to suppress my momentum. But how could I possibly let him slaughter me? I would make him understand what complete domination means. Just then, I noticed blue lights similar to the system appearing in the window above. Could there be quests in Winter Cypress Palace? As I was pondering, Wellington suddenly shouted from behind me, "Watch out!" The next second, white powder exploded at the position where I was standing. Fortunately, I reacted quickly and dodged in time, avoiding soiling the formal attire my mother had custom made for me. Seeing Wellington's anger surge, he wanted to stand up for me. He roared, "How dare you, Eswin? Is this the interesting program you mentioned? Explain yourself." Seeing this, I used my eye of insight on him again, confirming that he wasn't in league with Eswin, and as I looked up, indeed, only he would do such a thing. Eswin said, "Welcome, Waste of Ragnar. This special welcoming ceremony should be what you like best, right?" But I wasn't angry as he had imagined. Instead, I thanked him for his welcoming ceremony. This left Eswin stunned for a good 2.5 minutes, but soon he smiled again, because he felt things had become more interesting. And when we walked into the venue of the gathering, people around immediately started chattering. Why did Eswin invite this waste to participate in the sacred Azure Dragon Party? I bet Eswin did it on purpose. He wanted this waste to be a clown. Wellington apologized to me on their behalf, saying they're not usually like this. I responded, "It's okay. I've been used to it all these years. Rather, I should thank Eswin properly for the invitation." Wellington looked confused, obviously not understanding what I meant by that last sentence. Let all these people be arrogant a bit longer. They'll suffer later. At this point, Eswin came down from upstairs saying, "How's it going, Waste? Are you satisfied with this gathering?" But even with such blatant mockery, I still had to endure it. I must follow the original plan. I said, "Of course, for future gatherings like this, there's no need to have Wellington deliver invitations to me, just come to Rose Palace directly." Then Eswin embraced me saying, "Throwing the flower was my mistake. I apologize to you." I said, "But I only remember you were greeting me." Eswin directly slapped my back hard saying, "After so long, you've actually become so interesting. I truly like you more and more." People around seeing this thought I was bowing my head to flatter Eswin. After all, even within Ragnar, there are hierarchy distinctions. Suddenly, Wellington's expression became increasingly uncomfortable because someone deliberately touched his reverse scale. Strictly speaking, Wellington's birth was also that of an illegitimate child, truly a match made in heaven with Ragnar's waste. Little did they know this was exactly the moment I was waiting for. I wanted Wellington to believe that everything I was about to do had an element of helping him. So I told Eswin I needed to leave for a while. I had to greet new friends at the venue. Then I walked straight toward a guy who was still chattering endlessly about the illegitimate child topic. I picked up a wine bottle from the table and swung it directly at his face. Seeing he still wanted to resist, I kicked his chin hard, saying, "Who are you calling a waste? What has the status of being an illegitimate child done to offend you? Don't forget, your family is merely a watchdog for my Ragnar." After saying this, I violently twisted, breaking his bones into 2 pieces. Those from families of similar rank, after seeing this, were all intimidated and dared not move. I said, "Who else wants to greet me?" They were scared with cold sweat pouring. Meanwhile, my quest progress bar directly shot up to 58% and continued to rise. Who would have thought in the next second, my neck was surrounded by 4 sharp swords. I had just injured their young master, so they wanted me to atone with my death. But under my strong pressure, they could barely hold their swords steady. When they realized something was wrong, they instantly knew they had offended the wrong person. They still wanted to apologize and beg for my forgiveness, but what awaited them was only their heads falling to the ground. I said, "Well done, Master Evelyn." The reason Evelyn came over was because she was really worried about me. She was once Eswin's master, naturally knowing his character best. And yesterday, Magic Dragon had also spoken with her. He even brought a formal uniform of the White Dragon Knight Squad. He expressed that he really valued my potential, so he must protect me well. After all, the Azure Dragon Party is full of hot-blooded young people, and a fierce battle might inevitably occur. At this moment, Evelyn asked in surprise, "How did you know I followed you?" Intuition, Wellington, I responded with just one word, but I wasn't deceiving her. Any Ragnar possessing a dragon heart would have extremely acute sixth sense. I had noticed Evelyn following closely behind me ever since I got into the carriage, but at the same time, Evelyn also confirmed her speculation. I was indeed hiding my strength. I asked Evelyn, what should be done if those present insulted an heir? Evelyn's gaze instantly became sharp. She said, according to family rules, immediate execution. I said, but they're all children who haven't participated in the awakening ceremony yet. Just cut off an arm from each of them. After receiving orders, Evelyn immediately marched out. She carried out my requirements and punished all those who had insulted me by cutting off their arms. And because I only targeted those who discussed bloodlines, Eswin, who also possessed inheritance rights, couldn't stop this at all. Soon Evelyn completed her task. At the same time, my novice task progress bar reached 100%. Afterwards, I waved to Eswin as I left, saying, thanks for your hospitality, we had a lot of fun today. Now that the novice tasks are all completed, the title of Ragnar's Waste will no longer exist, and I also received an experience value universal medicine. But today's biggest harvest was drawing both Wellington and Evelyn to my side. After returning, upon learning that I had completely ruined the Azure Dragon Party, the fans specially held a celebration party for me. But Eswin was miserable. At this moment, he was being educated with slaps by his mother. She said, so you provided that waste with an excuse, letting him severely cripple your subordinates? I've warned you repeatedly not to underestimate him. If this continues, the plan to occupy Rose Palace will eventually fall apart. Eswin still wanted to explain, but what he received was Emil's merciless rebuke. Now hurry back and reflect properly. And after Eswin left, Edward once again reassured her, there's no need to worry too much. He felt this was actually a good thing. Although Rose Palace is full of wastes, they've always relied on the family head's support, making it difficult to conquer. But now there's a reasonable excuse to make the plan more perfect, since we're worried that Tir's emergence will catch the family head's attention and become stronger. This major disturbance he caused at the Azure Dragon Party will use legal means to sanction him. In this way, Rose Palace will lose its inheritance rights. Emil found this satisfying and asked how long it would take to prepare. Ed smiled and said, counting from now, the arrest warrant should be about to arrive. Just wait for good news when you wake up tomorrow morning. Go take a bath and get some sleep. This is special aromatic oil and herbs I brought you from the southern volcanic region. Meanwhile, on the other side, Wellington solemnly expressed that he would stand with me through thick and thin from now on. He said, originally my family wanted me to maintain good relations with Eswin, but now my thoughts are different. So taking this opportunity, I asked Wellington to help me with a favor. I took out a note and said, if my authority competition with Eswin becomes fierce, at that moment please help me. I know that in the future, Wellington will become the head of his family, Nacio, with strength that can match Ragnar 50-50. So I must take this chance to make him completely my person. Wellington didn't hesitate at all. He took the note I handed him and said, since I've decided to stand with you through thick and thin, naturally your matters are my matters. But just then, urgent sounds of armor footsteps came from outside the door, and the arrivals were the Law Hall's legal swordsmen. They said, Tir Ragnara, we are here to arrest you on suspicion of intimidation, threats, and violence causing internal strife. Seeing this, everyone was stunned, except for me, who calmly stepped forward for a cursory look, mocking these guys for being so impatient. This arrest warrant's ink hasn't even dried yet, but I had no intention of arguing. I signaled for the legal swordsman to handcuff me. After all, the subsequent developments will determine whether I can break through Winter Cypress Palace. And before leaving, I nodded to Wellington. At the same time, he understood the implication as he looked at the note in his hand. The content inside would be my killing move. Scene changed. Soon I was taken to the law hall by the legal swordsman. Those questioning me were all people of the Nine Dragons. Among them were Magic Dragon Urius Ragnar, Ridge Dragon Edward Troyman, Sword Dragon Osha Ragnar, and Veteran Dragon Wolf Ragnar, who also had another identity, Elder of the Senate. I knew Wolf valued bloodlines highly, so he would definitely despise me as an illegitimate child. Sure enough, after I proactively greeted him, Wolf didn't even look at me directly. Afterwards, Wolf recounted all my crimes at the Azure Dragon Party. He stated it was all trouble I caused, making all the affiliated families I had beaten last time clamor to break away from Ragnar. So I must bear this consequence. He absolutely could not tolerate anything that would tarnish the Ragnar family's reputation. I nodded and said, what you say is absolutely correct. I shouldn't have shown mercy to those who insulted Ragnar's inheritance rights back then. Should have cut off their heads, not just their arms. They are subjects. The monarch gave them honor and land, yet they turn around to threaten the monarch's life. Shouldn't they be executed on the spot? To this, Urius greatly approved of my statement. While Wolf and Edward were surprised, Sword Dragon Osha said, I understand the discrimination you want to express, but although we Ragnar are strong, our territory isn't large. If we don't listen to the voices of our vassals and discriminators, the final fate facing Ragnar would only be a dead end. Hearing this, I said, I will keep that in mind. Osha is the first lady of the family head and mistress of Plum Palace. In my previous life, she never showed hostility towards me. Then I asked what specific punishment I would receive. Wolf bluntly said, 3 months of confinement. Since the awakening ceremony would be in 2 months, I disagreed with this verdict. Hearing this, Osha suggested I wait for next year's awakening ceremony. By then, the 15 children I injured would also participate. At this point, Edward was extremely pleased. Earlier, before the questioning began, Magic Dragon had already pleaded for me. But what came of it was still that I would inevitably miss this year's awakening ceremony. Postponing the awakening ceremony is a bad thing in Ragnar. Having such a terrible person represent Rose Palace was almost negligible. Naturally, they would then have enough means to swallow Rose Palace. I resolutely decided to appeal, though I clearly knew knew the result after appeal wouldn't just be 3 months of confinement. At this moment, except for Ed, who exposed a mouthful of evil smiles, the rest of the 9 dragons were all shocked. Urias even asked if I knew what an appeal represented. I said, of course I know. In Ragnar, where the strong rule, an appeal means war. The victor will represent truth. Wolf thought my decision was quite arrogant. With my strength alone, I could never resist the power of 15 families. Naturally, I knew this, but in this way, the war would rise to another level. Under circumstances where the power gap is huge, both sides would use proxy battles in the form of duels to determine victory or defeat. Urias listened and was somewhat disappointed in me, saying quietly, as the defendant, you can only choose yourself as your proxy. While Winter Cypress Palace at worst would send out a sword genius like Eswin, then your final outcome would inevitably be defeat. Do you think Evelyn and I would fight as your proxies? That's absurd. But what he didn't know was that proxy battle was just bait for me. The real show was yet to come. By now, Wellington and Evelyn should have completed my mission and obtained evidence enough to bring down those guys from Winter Cypress Palace. Just when I thought things would develop according to my plan, an unexpected occurrence suddenly appeared. At this moment, the door behind me was opened by someone rushing in. The 9 dragons in high positions all knelt to show respect. Yes, Ragnar's family head, my father Tir, he actually came. I knelt on one knee and said, apprentice swordsman Tir pays respect to the great dragon god's presence. At the same time, the system presented a plot mission. The mission requirement was to obtain Winter Cypress Palace and find its secrets. Seeing this, I recalled the blue light I saw during my last Azure Dragon Party visit. I was really negligent to have thrown this matter to the back of my mind. It seems Winter Cypress Palace indeed has some fishy business, but now is not the time to think about this. Now I need to figure out how to deal with father first. He said, Rise, I was passing by when I heard about your situation. It seems quite complicated. So are you sure you want to go through with the proxy battle for a second trial? I gave an affirmative reply. Father pondered for a moment and said, I cannot fight as my own representative. So he wanted me to select someone who could substitute. Without a doubt, father was testing me, so I'll do as he wishes. I said, I have no so-called proxy. This duel can only be fought by me, even though I know the possibility of losing is quite high. But without trying, how would I know if your son has chosen to die rather than surrender? After I said this, father immediately burst into laughter, saying, did everyone hear what my son said? Nothing could be more suitable for a Ragnar heir to say. I really like your attitude. As the master of Ragnar, I decide to test you. If you, Tir, can withstand one strike from my sword, I will pardon all your suspicions. You have no reason to refuse me. Come outside right now. Suddenly, objections came from behind Tir. Family head, this absolutely cannot be so hasty. This was because Ed knew that if I could withstand that one strike, I would become an heir recognized by the family head. To prevent this possibility, he must stop the family head's decision. He continued saying, as a vassal, I really have no right to interfere in the father-son relationship between you two. But according to the rules, before he could finish, father said, it seems you have strong opinions about my judgment. He immediately cowered, saying, I understand, everything will proceed according to your arrangement. Then father looked at Magic Dragon on the platform, because he had been smiling there all along, and he just rambled on, only because he was too happy to see the family head after so long. To this, father naturally understood his thoughts, but now he needed to take care of the immediate matter first. Father said, how about it, son? You have no objections to my decision, right? And now that plans were developing in an irreversible direction. Of course I had to follow such divine will, but unexpectedly, my response to father was the word entrafuse. Hearing this, he was momentarily stunned. I said, the reward and punishment outcome isn't fair. If I win, I should get a more generous reward. After all, father, your strength is the strongest on the continent. How can it be compared to proxy battle opponents? Father then asked what reward I wanted to add. I turned around with an evil look on my face towards Edward and said, I want Winter Cypress Palace. This made Edward so angry he felt like his lungs would explode, wishing he could rush up and tear me into 2 pieces. Wolf thought I was too arrogant and would ultimately bring disaster upon myself, but I had a perfect grasp of father's character, and he agreed to my suggestion. He said, since you want to be an heir, you should at least have this kind of courage. Now come with me. I will personally test if you have this qualification. Because father thought I couldn't use magic yet, he chose a rusty iron sword as his weapon. But even so, father's kingly aura remained undiminished. Just standing there, he made my whole body, and even my bones, tremble uncontrollably. Meanwhile, Edward, who was watching the battle, became smug again. He thought that no matter how strong I became, I couldn't possibly withstand a strike that even high-level swordsmen couldn't endure. Little did he know, before stepping onto the platform, I had already used the potion rewarded by the system earlier, and allocated all distributable points to strength, increasing it 3-fold compared to before. This level of strength could definitely block father's one strike. After asking if I was ready, father immediately swung his sword down, and with my 100% focus, I successfully captured father's attack trajectory and prepared the best blocking stance. The next second, father's powerful pressure instantly blew away the floor around, but this also meant I did it. I successfully passed father's test. The 9 dragons officially announced. Tir Ragnara proved his innocence with his own will. Father grinned. He rarely found such a good descendant. Scene change when I woke up from my coma. Mother was extremely worried. Hearing her son would take a strike from the family head, she felt like dying. Then mother cried, saying, if you still feel unwell, I'll send someone to fetch the doctor right away. I told mother I was fine and asked where we were. At this point, Urias answered for mother, this is Winter Cypress Palace, awarded to you as an extra reward. Just now, following the family head's orders, I expelled the Winter Cypress Palace master, Eswin and Edward. Meanwhile, Emil, who had just been driven out of her home, was so angry her lungs nearly exploded. Why can an illegitimate illegitimate child steal my position as palace master. Edward was seething with murderous intent. He ordered Eswin to kill me after the awakening ceremony begins, absolutely showing no mercy. And after I sent Mother away, I came to the room that had emitted blue light earlier. As for this blue key, it was of course the necessary condition to open it. Then the system prompted me that I had discovered a dungeon. As a reward, I would get double experience points in the dungeon, but this was probably just a form of quest. After all, how could there be a bottomless cave in Winter Cypress Palace? Anyway, I must complete it. I absolutely cannot miss the opportunity to grow stronger quickly. But before going in, I needed to prepare some things. I filled my newly acquired inventory with weapons and equipment. After all preparations were ready, I returned to the entrance to start my first dungeon quest journey. Soon I heard monster growls from a position 100 meters away from the cave. The next second, a drooling magic wolf walked out from the darkness. It immediately pounced at me. Fortunately, I reacted quickly and blocked it with my shield in time. In terms of speed, I might not match it, but in terms of face-to-face strength comparison, I wouldn't lose to it. In the next round, I took the initiative and successfully hit its neck, but the magic wolf's skin hardness was extremely high. Ordinary attacks really couldn't harm it, so I began to simulate Father's attack trajectory in my mind. That was his one-strike kill move. If I could learn it, dealing with this magic wolf would be easy. However, my first attempt missed completely. Indeed, it wasn't so easy to master. Forget it, let's use the flash thrust from my past life secret techniques. Then I threw away the shield, concentrating all my attention on the sword and maximizing my speed. These basics were what I learned from Evelyn. Finally, I used this move to blind one eye of the magic wolf. With this, defeating it was no longer a challenge. Time quickly passed 2 months. By now, I had defeated 170 magical beasts. Exhausted, I quickly drank the basic healing potion rewarded by the system. Many times I survived thanks to it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to make it this far. Now only one magical beast remained in the instance. Most likely the ultimate beast. Scene change, I came to the 5th level of the instance with my remaining sword. This was a birthday gift from Mother, also prepared for me to use in the awakening ceremony. I never thought such an exquisite weapon was left in my room to rust in my past life. I truly deserve to die. In this life, I absolutely cannot make the same mistake again. I must protect Mother well. But what surprised me was, the instance beast I, with dragon blood, had to face was also a dragon species. Could this just be a coincidence? But fortunately, this beast was only a low-level one. It was still sleeping. If I could fully utilize the dragon heart, perhaps I could achieve a one-hit kill. As I used flash thrust again, my sword struck directly at its left eye. I had intended to pierce through to its brain, but this guy's flesh was particularly thick. After dodging its tail counterattack, I unleashed another secret technique, chaotic steps. At this moment, I jumped back and forth on its body, and each jump came with an attack. I wanted to divert its attention with general attacks first, then find an opportunity to strike its vital point. Suddenly, it roared to the sky, its skill dominating the battlefield. Feeling fear, my body movements directly slowed by 10%, seeing its giant claws close at hand. Unable to dodge, I could only hard block with my sword, but suffered serious injury as a result. Dragging on would only be more dangerous. I needed to quickly find the weak point and end the battle. Just then, I saw the location of its weak point, so I first pretended to want to confront it head-on, but actually ducked under its mouth to evade, then used flash thrust toward the position of its reverse scale. Finally, at the moment my strength was about to give out, I successfully destroyed its weak point. With this, all magical beasts in the dungeon had been dealt with by me, and as a reward for killing it, I got its teeth and its claws. Both are materials that can be used to strengthen weapons. One increases hardness, the other increases sharpness. Perfect for repairing the sword Mother gave me. At the same time, I also gained a new skill, Drake's Roar. Effect, release killing intent to suppress surroundings, but only effective against those of lower level than the caster. In my past life, I heard about this skill. Seems like only the chosen ones could use it. It seems the increased luck value has brought me too many benefits. But among the countless strong individuals in Ragnar, I wonder what effect it would have when released. After this, I also received rewards for the plot mission, Nest Compass. Although I don't know its specific use, it's likely closely related to the next plot mission. Forget it, no more research. Let me go back and have a good sleep, rest a bit. But just then, a maid suddenly called out to me from behind. Young Master Tir, something's wrong. Please go to the 4th training ground quickly. There's going to be a group fight. After listening to her explanation, I learned that during the days I was in the instance training, the news of my strength holding the family head's one strike quickly spread far and wide. So basically every day people came to seek me for practice. But among them, inevitably some came to deliberately provoke. They mocked, "We've come so many times, how come we can't even see you once?" Could it be that the young man you all talk about is a coward, afraid to come out and fight? But Sybil wouldn't tolerate these special-brained fellows. He solved them one punch at a time, saying, "If you can't even beat us underlings, are you qualified to practice with our young master?" But there could also be opponents with strong abilities. They are Horkus Lanka from the Four Lords of the North, nicknamed Black Bear, and also one of the Four Lords, I Ragnar, nicknamed Frost Sword Woman. Horkus said, "Where's Tir Ragnar? Call him out to duel with me." Similarly, I also came specially to find me for practice. Since neither would yield to the other, their conflict thus began. Arya reprimanded, "A defeated opponent has no right to be ahead of me." Horkus angrily said, "A month or even a day is enough to change my strength, and it's been 3 years. I've far surpassed you long ago." But this didn't prevent Arya from continuing to call him a defeated opponent. So Horkus said, "Why don't we fight first? The winner gets the right to practice first." Thus, a great battle was about to break out. Fortunately, Wellington came to stop it. Otherwise, damaging the training ground would surely get them dismembered by Evelyn. Wellington said, "If you want to fight, let me find you a suitable place." Horkus said, "You came just in time. I don't want to fight her. Why don't we have a match?" Meanwhile, I decided to go check it out and try how my newly acquired skill works. And as I arrived at the 4th training ground, in the state of using Drake's roar skill, the killing intent emitted was extremely powerful, enough to make people much lower level than me foam at the mouth. Wellington was astonished by what I did during my closed-door training, but my appearance also made Horcus's blood boil. "This killing intent is really scary. You're an interesting guy." After saying this, Horcus swung his great sword and charged up. His self-confident strike thought it could defeat me. Unexpectedly, I easily blocked it with my sword, even sending him flying tens of meters away. This stunned Horcus. He didn't expect his attack to be blocked like that, and his opponent was still expressionless, obviously not using full strength. I was also in a state of shock. Although I knew Horcus was generally average in all aspects, and not very bright, but their Lanka family was born with divine strength. In terms of raw power, they didn't fear anyone. This is what allowed Horcus to take a position as one of the 4 lords of the north. At this point, as I blocked his attack again, I used the flash thrust I had practiced in the instance, catching him off guard. It wasn't in vain that I frantically leveled up in the dungeon, even though I had only taken down the weakest of the 4 lords of the north. It meant I was qualified to challenge the other 3, and even take first place in the awakening ceremony. Seeing Horcus still not getting up, I realized I might have used too much force. Fortunately, he had only temporarily passed out. Suddenly, enthusiastic cheers erupted around me. Young Master Tir defeated the northern 4 lord, Black Bear, and it was an instant kill. I told him Horcus was still alive. Now he's just. Before I could finish, the sword in my hand made a cracking sound and broke into 2 pieces. Worthy of young Master Tir, 1 attack and a sword is scrapped. Thinking this was what Mother gave me to use at the awakening ceremony, I thought, I'm definitely going to be scolded when I get back. However, Rei was now standing not far away. Her eyes had been fixed on one person from the beginning, because when Rei was little, she had once been given warmth by a boy in a blizzard. He had even taken her hand and led her home, saying he would send her back home after the snow stopped, and the person she was thinking of in her heart was me, whom she kept staring at. In the end, Rei did not choose to come forward to practice with me or greet me. After leaving a smile, she turned and left the training ground. That moment of her smile was caught by Wellington, which made him curious. Scene change, I had returned to Winter Cypress Palace, because I earned the nickname Flash Tiger. The maids were celebrating this honor beside me, and encouraging me to maintain this momentum until the awakening ceremony. As for Mother, she personally cooked a table full of dishes, but the highlight was yet to come. Now Mother brought in a large basin of premium abalone meat. She knew I had been too exhausted lately, so she added various seasonings to nourish me, in preparation for the upcoming awakening ceremony. But thinking about how Mother had always been so enthusiastic and proactive. In my past life, I actually ignored her multiple times, argued with her, never understanding how much she wanted to give me love. I said, "Thank you, Mom, the food you make is delicious." After the meal, I plucked up courage to tell her about the broken sword. I was already prepared to be scolded, but to my surprise, Mother not only didn't get angry, but blamed all responsibility on the blacksmith who made the sword. She said she clearly said this sword had added snow white kui and black segment wood. It would never break in a lifetime. Only now did I understand that Mother's sword was actually a premium item. This sword was good, but I never thought it was this good. Black segment wood is a strange creature that only grows by eating iron. They are flexible like wood, but harder than iron. So I asked Mother where she purchased it. She answered, didn't pay money. But Mother felt she had been cheated, and needed to go settle accounts with them, to reforge a good sword for me to prepare for the awakening ceremony. I said I could use other swords instead, but was denied by Mother. Absolutely not. Now everyone has finally seen your strength. So especially at such times, you need to focus attention on yourself. After saying this, Mother turned and walked towards the door, stating she would go settle accounts with that person right now. I asked about the specific location, but upon hearing Mother say it was at Basque Workshop, I was completely stunned. This is one of the top 3 weapon manufacturing places on the continent, and its owner is the continent's strongest weapon forger, demon craftsman, Kurson, belonging to the elf race. The weapons she forges are all premium items in the river of history. Even the great sword in my father Dragon God's hand was made by her. At this point, I followed Mother to the Basque Workshop. In my past life, while working at the Black Blood Intelligence Organization, I had heard about the owner of this place, Kurson. She was marked as a special protection level object, also known as the embodiment of capitalism. The reason is simple. She has a strange yearning for money, but the most famous is still her title as the strongest blacksmith, demon craftsman. I never thought I would see such a great figure one day. Just then, Mother suddenly shouted angrily at Kurson, "Mom, didn't you promise me you would quit smoking?" Upon hearing this, I was stunned. The world's #1 weapon forger was actually my grandmother. Grandmother said, "I'm not your mother. The day you abandoned me, I severed our mother-daughter relationship. So, customers, what can I do for you?" So Mother's previous claim of being an orphan was a lie to me. Does this situation mean I'm a mixed blood elf? Indeed, my good looks have a basis. Mother threw the broken sword out, saying, "This is returning the precious sword you gave me before, said to be premium, yet it's a defective product of the worst kind." Grandmother was speechless. No one had dared to say a sword forged by her own hands was a defective product to her face. After drawing the sword, Grandmother was stunned for a full 2.5 minutes before recovering. Then she asked gravely, "What exactly did it go through?" Mother said, "Who knows? Your sword is a defective product. My son used it to hit wooden posts for 2 months and it ended up like this." Grandmother seemed to have realized something. After calling me brat, she suddenly fell silent. Mother warned her to watch her words. Her son would be a leader-level talent of Ragnar in the future. Then I introduced myself. "I'm the master of Winter Cypress Palace, Tir Ragnara. It's an honor to meet you." Grandmother said she had heard about me, but she was puzzled whether this sword was truly made by her. I said, "I really like this sword. Please fix it." After hearing this, Grandmother led us to the forging workshop. On the way, I asked Mother and learned a truth. truth. Actually, mother and grandmother were not biological mother and daughter. Grandmother was a foster mother who took her in, although they only spent half a year together. This made me a bit disappointed, so I'm a pure-blooded human after all. Then mother mentioned things grandmother liked. Whether gems, music, comedy, or people, she liked them all. It was also because she liked mother that she took her as an adopted daughter. Grandmother glanced at mother saying, "How boring. Things from the past. You still have a face to share with your son." Mother immediately laughed. "Oh, don't say such insincere words." Grandmother was obviously hit where it hurt. Though angry, she could do nothing. I said, "Then why did you sever ties?" Before mother could answer, grandmother said, "It's all because she said she wanted to be Ragnar's wife. Even though that place was very dangerous, she fearlessly walked right in." Mother said flirtatiously, "Who could resist when the family head was so handsome back then?" Grandmother said, "You silly girl, and you still have the nerve to come back asking me to forge swords for free." As she spoke, grandmother got embarrassed by just hearing the word, "and mom." Looking at this heartwarming scene, in my previous life, I'd never seen mother with this side to her. Until the day I died, I knew nothing about my mother. Suddenly, I remembered that incident. Why did grandmother love mother so much, yet didn't stop her in previous life? And when we arrived at our destination, grandmother immediately pulled me into the room, leaving only mother still mumbling to herself outside. Only after the door closed did she react, shouting loudly. Grandmother told me to ignore her for now, because there was something more important to confirm. She said, "Tell me honestly, you have a relic of the ancient dragon, don't you?" I asked in confusion, "Grandmother, are you talking about Ragnar's ancestral guardian dragon? Although I've heard that the first family head hid treasures used by the ancient dragon for future generations, this seems to be just a legend." Hearing this, grandmother immediately took out the sword and said, "Still playing dumb, huh? If you don't have a relic, how could you possibly damage my sword into this state? Nothing except a relic could destroy it. Do you know how much this thing is worth?" In the end, grandmother didn't press me further. Instead, she led me to the corner of the room. Then, dragging a wooden coffin secured with chains, she said to me, "Inside this is something I want but cannot obtain. If you can unlock it, I'll give it to you." The next second, that wooden coffin suddenly began to emit a blue light. Could this be a new story mission? From my unusual reaction, grandmother could sense that I could see things ordinary people couldn't see. Then she told me that inside was a relic of the ancient dragon. It was a demonic sword made from the fangs of the ancient dragon in the distant mythological era, named White Moonlight Blade. She said, "So if you can break the seal on the box, I'll give you this White Moonlight Blade as a welcoming gift. But if handled improperly, you could die." Then the system popped up a new story mission, requiring me to gain the White Moonlight Blade's approval. But this also brought back a memory from my previous life. The White Moonlight Blade was once the main weapon of the Black Snow Intelligence Organization's leader, which greatly increased his power as one of the 9 dragons. However, very few people had ever actually seen the White Moonlight Blade, because those who saw it either died or mysteriously disappeared. And when I first met leader Black Dragon, by chance, I was somehow able to see the White Moonlight Blade's true form. It was because of this special circumstance that I survived and joined his intelligence organization. When I came back to my senses, I roughly calculated that there were still 4 years until my meeting with Black Dragon, which means that before then, the White Moonlight Blade had been hidden in this wooden coffin. Since fate seemed to want me to claim it, I might as well make it mine. So I took out the blue key again and inserted it. The effect was indeed the same as in Winter Cypress Palace. It could be used to open mission dungeon. I successfully broke the seal to grandmother's astonishment, but little did I know that the moment I touched it, a strong suction force suddenly appeared in the wooden coffin, and black matter spreading from inside began to extend all over my body, causing me to faint. When I opened my eyes again, what appeared before me was a scene from my previous life that filled me with grief. At this moment, the White Moonlight Blade's true form, a black griffin, thought I was trapped in its illusion. It wanted to swallow me whole and take mental control, making me unable to wake from the illusion forever. Little did it know that I hadn't lost myself at all. I immediately attacked it, firmly gripping its beak. It thought, how is this possible? A mere human able to withstand the most painful moment of his heart. You didn't expect this, did you? I've long overcome the despair you showed me. Looking at the griffin before me, it was indeed somewhat different from my memory. I remember that when we first met, it was at least 10 meters tall. Now it's about the same size as me. Could it be because it's been sealed for too long? I said, now you belong to me. If you don't submit obediently, my hand might be a little heavy. Meanwhile, in the real world, Mother learned that I was unconscious and couldn't stop crying. She said, what exactly happened? I asked you to help him forge a sword, not turn him into a vegetable. Kirsten was naturally confused. After all, she had never seen this situation before. This demonic object had somehow connected with the blood vessels of the person holding it. Now Kirsten could only pray that I would be all right. Mother said sternly, if something really happens to my son, then this time breaking off relations won't just be a joke. Just as Mother finished speaking, my hand showed signs of movement. At the same time, a black airflow rushed out from the White Moonlight Blade and kept drilling into my body. After this phenomenon ended, I awakened from the dream. Mother hurriedly took me in her arms and said, you scared Mama to death. Next time you absolutely cannot make me worry about you like this without my consent. I said, all right, I'm fine. I apologize. As the system displayed hunting successful, I successfully completed the second story mission. I was really lucky to have caught the griffin when it had just awakened and was still weak. As a reward, I gained control over the White Moonlight Blade. And after absorbing the demonic power of the White Moonlight Blade, my magic power also increased significantly, and the value broke through to 200 points. From now on, my magic power has developed sentience. Magic recovery will increase by 1.5 per second. It seems I've now reached the level of an advanced swordsman. But unfortunately, I can't immediately use this massive magic power. I must resist before the awakening ceremony. But for some reason, the white moonlight blade has been shaking violently since just now. At first I thought it still wanted to resist, until grandmother explained that it had been confined too long. Now that it's finally back in the world, it needs to vent the frustration of being locked up for hundreds of years. Then grandmother pointed at the wall in front of her and said, "Why don't you try the power of this sword now? Just swing it at full force. This wall won't break." After I repeatedly asked grandmother if it was really okay, I decided to secretly use magic power while testing the white moonlight blade's performance. After all, I have the dragon's heart, and even grandmother doesn't know its hidden function. At this moment, as I gripped the sword and began to gather power, grandmother instantly realized something was wrong. The next second after I used the flash thrust, not just that wall, but the wall of Basque workshop was also split in half. This scene left grandmother's heart shattered. My workshop, my money, my life, and I began to be wary of the white moonlight blade because it consumed all my magic power in that one strike. But just then, grandmother suddenly flashed in front of me. Her speed was so fast I couldn't react. From grandmother's expression, I knew she couldn't detect that I had hidden my magic power with the dragon's heart. She asked, puzzled, "You clearly don't know how to use magic power yet. Did you really just destroy the wall like this with sharpness alone?" Kirsten thought that nothing but genius could explain the current situation. But in the next second, seeing potential profit, Kirsten's eyes suddenly lit up. She hoped I would take her forged equipment and weapons to advertise widely across the continent, becoming a walking billboard for her Basque workshop. Mother noticed grandmother's unusual behavior. She said, "Mom, you're not thinking of using my son as a money-making tool, are you?" Grandmother didn't dare say a word, afraid of ruining her future dreams of wealth. It was getting late. After a simple goodbye to grandmother, I got into the carriage with mother to return to Rose Palace. But thinking about how I had made a big hole in Basque workshop today, I felt guilty. So I gave her the spoils I had collected from the magic wolf as funds to repair the wall. My appearance truly shocked grandmother. She said, "As expected of the daughter I've set my sights on, soon I'll be able to enjoy wealth and prosperity without worry." Just as she finished speaking, a raven in the distance suddenly called out to her, "Long time no see, demon craftsman." Hearing this, Kirsten's brow instantly furrowed. She knew something bad was about to happen. Scene change. Now only 5 days remain until the awakening ceremony, but I still diligently faced Evelyn's training every day. Only my strength both shocked and pleased her. She never imagined that in just half a year. My strength would almost surpass hers. If I could unleash my magic power in the future, then in Ragnar where countless strong people exist, a leader strong enough to guide them would be born once again. She said, "Well, today's training course ends here. Your progress in swordsmanship is tremendous. I believe you're likely to take the first seat at the awakening ceremony." I smiled and said, "Thanks to your guidance, if I really become the first at the awakening ceremony, I'll properly thank you when I give my speech." Evelyn said helplessly, "That's quite unnecessary. You might as well properly thank your father for exempting you from your 3-month confinement." At this moment, my little fans crowded forward saying, "Young Master Tir, please mention our names too. We also want to taste the flavor of fame." I sighed deeply. Indeed, people fear fame as pigs fear fattening. I'm really too popular. I said, all right, I'll come back to have a rest now." Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the annual awakening ceremony, and the location was at Ragnar's central headquarters. As I walked into the venue, it was already packed with people. After all, everyone wanted to achieve good results on this sacred stage and be recognized by their family's high positions as Ragnar swordsmen. Sitting in the middle position was my father, Tir Ragnara. Beside him was the family head 2 generations back, Hilda Ragnar. But Hilda didn't look like she was 150 years old at all, though her presence at the awakening ceremony probably wasn't without my father's smooth talking. Besides them, the 9 dragons had also arrived at the venue, and with the sound of a drum, Barna, the judge of this awakening ceremony, announced that the first ceremony assessment was now officially launched. Participants need to select a sword from the iron sword graveyard below and leave a mark of their strength on the wall in front. The wall contains snow-white kui. Its hardness cannot be damaged by ordinary iron swords, so everyone must add magic power to their blade to shake this wall and leave a mark. Then, Barna took out a black pill. This is a special spirit medicine called Soma. After consuming it, you can gain over 10 years of magic power and open the magic core at your Dantian. It is also the key to whether you can pass this test. Now, I will announce the first one. Tir Ragnara, who has performed exceptionally well recently. Under the admiring gazes of everyone, I stepped out and got that Soma. Although in my previous life, Eswin became the first of the awakening ceremony, this time I will definitely change history. At the same time, the system popped up a new task. Take the first position in the awakening ceremony. Hilda asked Tir, "Is this the child you told me about? You're looking forward to his performance today." Tir said, "Don't say that. I see that you're more excited than I am. And he's a rare special grade talent descendant of Ragnar." Hilda said, "Then let's see how much expectation this child can deliver." After I took the pill, the judge was scared by me, only because the magic power I gained had already overflowed, exceeding the maximum limit my body could bear. If I couldn't suppress it, I might ruin my meridians and become crippled. In my previous life, I was too weak and couldn't control the magic power, injuring myself. But in this life, I have the dragon's heart. Such a tragedy won't happen to me again. With my full concentration and will, the magic power that was overflowing now began to gather at my Dantian. Then, under the judge's surprised gaze, I successfully suppressed this powerful magic power. I was extremely excited at this moment. Now I finally have both the dragon's heart and the magic core. 2 great weapons. It was so easy to succeed in this life. Next is to formally display my magic power at Ragnar. I've been holding back for so long, I'm about to burst. After my magic power attached to the sword, I immediately used the technique technique that my father used at that time. One-hit kill, also known as Dragon Flash. This time I will definitely succeed. Instantly, the pressure spreading from my body extended throughout the entire venue. My power seemed like a giant dragon rushing out. The next second, while everyone watched in shock, the sword mark I left on the wall was revealed. It almost spanned an entire large surface. This scene shocked Barna. This is the largest sword mark ever created by a newcomer in history. So, under Barna's review, I successfully passed the assessment of the first awakening ceremony. The contestants watching from below found it unbelievable. Their desire to compete for the first position completely extinguished. At the same time, the system prompted that my luck had returned to 0. From now on, all unlucky curses on me would disappear. And from now on, my reputation would resound throughout Ragnar. Seeing this, I was extremely excited. I can finally stand on the same starting line as everyone else. Suddenly, the system prompted that many people were interested in my performance. Among them was Osha Ragnar, who had an impulse to take me as her first disciple. Yuria said, I spotted him first. He already said he would join my White Armor Dragon Banner team. But most importantly, I got the attention of Hilda Ragnar. Because she possessed a heart called Eagle Luda, I must find a way to get it. After this, the contestants also began to take the stage one after another. Although Sybil's sword mark was a bit short and shallow, it was just barely above the passing line. Next were Ray Ragnar, Horkus Lanka, and Wellington Nacio. They naturally passed easily. However, the sword marks they left were a heavy blow to Sybil. As time passed, basically everyone had completed the test. My score far exceeded anyone else's, and the only one left who hadn't tested was Eswin Ragnar. His appearance caused discussions among the audience. It seems this is going to become a showdown between Flash Tiger and Black Panther. No, even Eswin is no match for young Master Tir. Little did they know that the one standing on the stage today was no longer the Black Panther they knew. After Eswin swallowed the soma, the magic power emanating from his body was actually mixed with thick, killing intent. At the same time, the judge also sensed something was wrong. He wanted to stop his test, but it was too late. Eswin's sword had already fallen on that wall, and the sword mark left was actually on par with mine. Barna was shocked again. Eswin's outstanding performance slapped the faces of those who had looked down on him earlier. In the case of two people having the same sword mark, the only way to determine the winner is to wait for the high-level people to score. Shortly after, Barna announced the perfect conclusion of the first assessment, and expressed his delight at the emergence of many talented individuals with good results this year. Then, he announced the time for the second assessment in 3 days, asking the qualified swordsman to attend on time. Of course, this final announcement was what everyone was most looking forward to, the ranking of the first assessment. After joint deliberation by the two family heads and the 9 dragons, I took first place with a perfect score of 10, and no flaws in speed, magic power, and other aspects. Eswin was second. He was not only the strongest of the Northern Four Lords, but was also predetermined to definitely get the first position in the awakening ceremony, but he only ranked second in the first assessment. Although many people agreed with this judgment, there were still those who supported Eswin and felt it was unfair. Both got a perfect 10, why wasn't Eswin first? But the next words silenced them. Even though Tir and Eswin's sword marks were similar in length, Tir's depth was closer to the record set by Torkai. This person was one of the 5 major candidates most likely to inherit the next family head position. After hearing this basis, everyone had no further objections. Only Eswin's face looked very unpleasant. As for the 3rd to 5th places, they were Wellington, Ray, and Horkus respectively. But Sybil's luck was really good. Not only did she just make the passing line, she was also just at the very last position in the ranking. The second assessment will be held in the Winter Mountains in 3 days. Please prepare well. All 87 people who passed the first assessment. Scene change, now in the 4th training field. We were celebrating our achievements of getting 1st, 3rd, and 87th place today. Though very happy, I still reminded everyone, the awakening ceremony isn't over yet. We absolutely cannot relax too much. What I want to say is, in the end, both 1st and 2nd will belong to us. To this, Wellington said he would put in more effort later. Not like today's results, falling so far behind in points. I said, don't be discouraged, I was just lucky in the first assessment. Maybe the second assessment will be what you excel at. Besides, we're brothers with deep feelings. Even if I came in last, you couldn't dislike me. Wellington was speechless, but his confused feelings were somewhat better. So, let's work hard together in the second assessment. Time quickly arrived at the next morning. I came to the Winter Mountains alone. This was a place I couldn't hope to visit in my previous life, no matter how much I wanted to. And from now on, I also need to be more careful. I robbed Winter Cypress Palace. Edward definitely won't let it go. But all this is just the beginning. Defeating small fry like Landon isn't enough. The ones who really gave me nightmares every day were Eswin and Edward. Just wait, I'll definitely make you taste the same pain as me. Then I took out the nest compass rewarded by the system earlier. Now it kept pointing at the Winter Mountains in front of me, which means that might be where a certain nest is located. Anyway, the second assessment location will be in this area. I'll explore it well then. Suddenly, movement from behind attracted me. I just realized I was being followed. After discovering someone hiding behind a cliff wall, I immediately drew my sword, flashed to his front, and threatened. Who are you? Why are you secretly following me? He claimed to be a member of the Windsword team. Their leader saw the results of this assessment, so ordered him to come find me. I expected that guy would invite me, but didn't think it would be so quick. And when I found out I wasn't being invited to join, but to go take a qualification test, I was stunned. I said, are you sure you want me to go take a test rather than join directly? He laughed. Young Master Tir, you know the reputation of the Windsword team. It's already good to get an interview opportunity. Just as he finished speaking, a voice mocking the Windsword team came from behind. Young Master Tir, just join our Black Iron Cavalry team. We're different from those fools. If you agree, I'll give you my deputy captain position. Suddenly, 4 figures jumped out around her. They had also come to invite me to join their organizations. But how did even the Law Hall and security Bureau get involved? Do they really think I have no options? And none of them would give way, directly starting a big argument. I decided to take this opportunity to quickly escape. Staying here longer would definitely mean more trouble. Just then, I smelled the fragrance of plum blossoms. Sure enough, Osha was slowly walking towards my position. She said, "I know I might be considered too greedy by others, but I can't suppress the urge to get talent." I didn't respond to her words, but asked if she came here for something important. Osha said, "Indeed, it's a very big matter, Tir Ragnara. Are you willing to be my adopted son?" Meanwhile, on Eswin's side, due to his failure in the first assessment, he took out his anger on his subordinates, swinging his sword at will and crippling them all. His heart couldn't calm down. Just thinking about Tir's recent performance made him both distressed and angry. After beating down all his subordinates, Eswin had already seen red with killing intent. Even when his own uncle walked over, he was about to throw his sword at him, but Edward stopped him and didn't make much of it. He said that venting anger here wouldn't change the situation. At times like this, one needs to calm down and think about a plan. He said, "Come with me, I'll tell you a way to kill Tir." On the other side, Osha said she wanted me as her adopted son. If I could agree to become her adopted son, then she would teach me all her lifelong skills. After she said she wanted to adopt me as her adopted son, those who wanted to invite me to join their organizations earlier all felt inferior. The conditions they offered were simply not acceptable. At the same time, under their shocked gazes, Osha used her exclusive secret technique, floating space, and with a surge of powerful magic power, she and I arrived in this floating space. In my previous life, I had heard that this skill could create a space completely isolated from the outside out of thin air, but it was also my first time witnessing it with my own eyes. It was really shocking. At this time, Osha smiled and said, "The reason I brought you here is to give you a special gift." Although my initiative might anger the family head, I asked puzzled, what kind of gift requires such elaborate arrangements? The next second, Osha drew her sword and told me, "The feeling of the family head's sword is the contempt of a king, like the aura of a dragon descending from heaven. But mine is very different from his. The family head focuses on one-hit kills. While I want to achieve unpredictable sword technique variations, the dragon I pursue is a changeable existence." As she spoke, Osha began to dance with her sword. Her sword technique indeed seemed to have no pattern. Her footsteps looked light, but each step was full of power. After Osha's demonstration, she told me this was her most proud sword technique, called Sky Flower Rain. It was also the gift she personally prepared for me, but I really couldn't imagine that a person could complete 120 sword technique changes in one breath. I really wanted to learn this skill. Then I showed eager eyes and said, "Can I really accept such a valuable gift?" Osha nodded, giving me an affirmative answer. After this, she dispelled the floating space. She said, "If there's anything you don't understand, you can come find me anytime after the awakening ceremony is over. I hope you won't disappoint my expectations for you. There will definitely be a place for you in the future, Ragnar." After speaking, Osha transformed into peach blossom petals and disappeared into the air. My heart couldn't calm down. If I could have gained her favor in my previous life, perhaps the ending would have been different. But now there's a difficult problem. I didn't agree to Urias's several invitations, but now I've become Osha's adopted son. Well, I'll think about a strategy when I have time. Soon it was the day of the second assessment. At this time, Assessment Officer Jackie Ragnar was speaking. "The Winter Mountains will become your new training ground. Even though this area has been under Ragnar's rule for 1,000 years, if your level is only that of an apprentice swordsman, you absolutely cannot go deep into the Magic Sea area. Everyone here is aiming to inherit and defend the family's warrior goal, so I hope everyone will do their utmost to complete today's assessment." Then Jackie took out a bell. "This is the key item to complete the assessment. The task is to catch a monster within half a month, put the bell on it, make it a slave, and bring it back to the assessment point. As for these bells, they also have level divisions. The higher the level used and succeeded, the higher the final score will be. The assessment doesn't limit which methods to use, as long as you complete the task within the specified time." I thought, that means it doesn't matter if you plunder from others or even fight a big battle. Really interesting, truly worthy of Ragnar, which has always adhered to the principle of the strong being respected. But before starting, Jackie still reminded one thing. It's best not to touch the purple bells, because the monsters corresponding to this level cannot be enslaved with your current strength. Now I'm holding a totem set so that monsters cannot violate it. It will serve as a safe supply point for everyone. Now that everything has been explained, the second assessment officially begins. In an instant, everyone left the starting point and began to act according to their pre-prepared routes. Some people thought supplies were important and wanted to hide for a while. Some people were rash and wanted to go directly to fight monsters. However, Eswin's mind was full of Uncle Edward's instructions, and Edward even bet his life. Once the plan was successfully implemented, this would be Tir Ragnar's grave. But Eswin didn't know. At this moment, a pair of eyes was staring at him intently. Scene change, as I was preparing to attack a dense forest according to the guidance of the nest compass. The next second, Wellington suddenly appeared behind me. At first I thought he wanted to act with me. After all, we were going for first and second. But Wellington actually came to issue me a challenge. He said this time he absolutely wouldn't let me have first place. He also wanted to strive for the first position. I couldn't help but smile. I understood what Wellington was thinking now. It was exactly the same as when I lost to him back then. Aim for someone stronger than yourself and work hard, and surpass him, become stronger than him. I said, I accept your challenge. Don't think because you're my good brother, I'll go easy on you. After that, Wellington left this place, while I continued my secret operation. At this time, the compass pointer in this area kept pointing to the ground. Could it be asking me to dig underground to find it? Had I known this, I should have brought a shovel. Now I can only rely on you, White Moonlight Blade. At this moment, the White Moonlight Blade felt dissatisfied, but I don't care about it that much. Since it's with me, it must obey me. But just then, I suddenly smelled 3 3 disgusting scents. I immediately unwrapped the bandage seal of the white moonlight blade and swung a powerful strike towards the dense forest not far away. The swift sword wave instantly leveled a large area of forest. I said, "Don't lurk around sneakily. If you don't come out, the next strike I won't deliberately miss." As soon as I finished speaking, 3 swordsmen walked out from behind the trees. The scarred man praised, "Worthy of the first place in the first assessment. We were hiding so far away and still discovered by you." I knew them all too well. They were born in Buck Mountain Village and were also the scum there. Because after they were recognized by Ragnar's awakening ceremony, for the so-called "respect for the strong," they wiped out all their fellow villagers from Buck Mountain. As a member of Black Snow Intelligence, I was sent to investigate, and although I confirmed the killers were them, I couldn't find evidence, because they had taken foolproof measures, crushing all these people's heads into pulp. In my previous life, I couldn't kill you with my own hands. In this life, I will definitely make you experience the taste of losing your head. But I still wanted to know what they were looking for me for, I said. "Speak quickly if you have something to say," the scarred man arrogantly said. "I didn't want to tell you the truth, but since you're going to die anyway, I'll tell you. There's a person you can't reach who wants us to play with you." Before he finished speaking, I said the person who commissioned them was one of the 9 dragons, veteran dragon Wolf Ragnar. They were all stunned, asking, "How did you know we didn't leak any information?" I casually made some response to deal with them, but the real reason was that these 3 would become Wolf's running dogs in the future. At this time, the fat man feared that if the matter was exposed, they would be punished. But the scarred man didn't care at all, because he felt I would definitely die today. He said, "I'm in a good mood today. I'll leave your body intact later." I was speechless, since when could even a group of insects be so presumptuous towards me? Then I used my father's big move Dragon Flash, and fused it with Osha's Sky Flower Rain. In one breath, I directly struck 3 consecutive slashes. The 3 people instantly had their heads separated from their bodies. Killing them instantly was of course a matter of course. But I never imagined that fusing Osha's sword technique would result in such great power. Although I currently can't do 120 consecutive slashes like her. But successfully doing 3 consecutive slashes at once, I still feel full of pride. After simply dealing with the scene, I began to ponder how to successfully enter underground. Right at this moment, a blue system quest light suddenly lit up from the cliff behind me. I really didn't expect the entrance to this lair would appear in such a location. Immediately after, stairs actually began to slowly emerge. Let me hurry down and see what reward the system will give me this time. Meanwhile, on the other side, at this time, 9 Dragons was holding a meeting in the conference room. The soldier responsible for the second assessment brought the current ranking situation. First place is Eswin Ragnar, who has hunted a total of 41 beasts with 21 companions. Second place is Ray Ragnar, but he was interrupted by Urius before he could finish. He asked where Tir Ragnar's current performance ranks. The soldier said he currently has no ranking qualification, the number of demon beasts he has hunted is 0, and the number of companions is also 0. Hearing this, Osha seemed a little worried, wondering if something had happened. But Urius didn't believe it at all. The probability of something like this happening is nearly 0. Even so, Urius was still furious. He had heard about Osha personally teaching me swordsmanship. Osha told him not to get too angry, because there was something more important to confirm right now. What exactly were Wolf and Edward plotting? From the very beginning, their expressions had been very strange. At this moment, they were seen communicating through telepathy. I didn't expect the 3 guys I sent to deal with Tir to be quite efficient. Since things have been handled, you can go ahead and plunder to your heart's content. But Ed was extremely uncomfortable, because after his Winter Cypress Palace was stolen, he took the opportunity to quietly search the Rose Palace. But there were no relics of the ancient dragon there at all, so he felt the clue must be in Tir's hands. Then Ed sent a telepathic message to the subordinate behind him, saying, "Call Eswin over." On the other side, I was surrounded by a group of skeletons that could threaten human mental strength. Ordinary people couldn't resist them at all. But how could this have the slightest impact on someone like me who carried an ancient dragon relic? After this, I used spiritual expansion. It allowed me to successfully find the final entry point in the dark environment. I was quite lucky, because the door that appeared before me at this moment was a ruin previously discovered by the Black Snow organization, and also a dragon's lair. 3 years from now, the legendary item inside will belong to Black Snow. Sorry everyone, but now I can only get there first. As a result, as soon as I pushed the door open and walked in, I froze on the spot, because this was not the ruin that Black Snow found in my previous life at all. There were treasures all over the ground, and the giant dragon resting on top of the treasures indicated that this was actually the lair of an ancient dragon species. What exactly is going on? Could it be that Black Snow spread rumors in my previous life, or was it discovered 3 years earlier, causing the ruin not to have changed yet? But no matter what, it was too unexpected for me. But looking at the giant dragon in front of me, my heart instantly jumped into my throat. Even if I fought with my life, I couldn't defeat it. Now, the only thing I can think of is to turn around and run away, and come back next time before Black Snow discovers it. Just then, the giant dragon behind me suddenly woke up and said, "It's been 1,000 years, and this is the first time I've seen a living chosen one. My name is Road Bullock, and I am the master of this winter mountain range." Sensing the movement, I turned around and knelt on one knee, saying, "Ancestor, I am Tir, the illegitimate son of Ragnar." But hearing my greeting, Road Bullock was confused. She didn't understand why I called her ancestor. She was merely the companion of Ragnar's ancestor, Sigurd. Hearing this, I asked in confusion, "Then are you the mother of Ragnar's second-generation leader, Friedel?" Road Bullock said, puzzled, "That guy Friedel is talking nonsense again. Sigurd and I did call each other companions, but that was just to show respect to weaker individuals whose soul communication was limited. We actually had no emotional ties between male and female, so to speak. Furthermore, we are a dragon species. As dragons, it is impossible for us to to create offspring with humans at all. Hearing this, I interrupted her and said, then what about the descendants of Ragnar having dragon blood? To this, Road Bullock said, because Sigurd and I signed a contract. This allowed the descendants of Ragnar to be elevated from humans to the bloodline of dragons. But just as I wanted to press further, Road Bullock told me that the greeting would end here. Now she would fulfill his obligation as the guardian dragon of Ragnar to the Chosen One. From this moment on, I, Road Bullock, will abide by the contract and answer the 3 questions the Chosen One asks me. Hearing this, I instantly relaxed. After all, not having to fight with Road Bullock was simply too lucky. In order to better understand Ragnar, I decided to seize this opportunity to glimpse everything about her to the maximum extent possible. After a long period of contemplation, I finally consolidated the things I wanted to ask. Then I told Road Bullock my first question, but before I could finish, she interrupted me. She said I was too slow, almost boring her back to sleep. I continued to ask her, what is the meaning of the guardian dragon's existence? Hearing this, Road Bullock said with satisfaction, that is a very good question. Now I will tell you the meaning of my existence. On the far side of the great ocean, which is also the furthest end of the world, there is a monster called the Nameless Monarch. He and Sigurd were fated arch rivals. After his death, I took his place to protect this continent. But in the pauses while Road Bullock was speaking, I suddenly noticed something strange. That is, when she mentioned the Nameless Monarch, her eyes actually showed fear. What a terrifying existence the Nameless Monarch must be. I wanted to ask this as my next question, but after a brief consideration, I gave up this idea. Because there were too many things I wanted to know, I had to figure them out first. Next, I stated the second question I had originally prepared. What exactly are the relics of the ancient dragon? My words confused Road Bullock again. She said, you yourself possess 3 relics of the ancient dragon. It seems your luck is beyond my imagination. Hearing this, I began to associate. The successful completion of the Winter Palace dungeon, the white moonlight blade in my hand. These 2 must be the relics, but what is the third one? Meanwhile, Road Bullock explained the origin of the ancient dragon relics. After the birth of the Nameless Monarch, to protect the humans of the continent, the ancient dragon Pafnir split its soul into 31 pieces. These are the 31 relics, and these relics can be an item, or an experience, or a strange phenomenon. Instantly, I seemed to understand what the third relic on my body was. So, my rebirth and return is also a type of ancient dragon relic. If I were to imagine it as a power created by Pafnir, it would fit perfectly. But it's strange. Before obtaining a relic, one would usually undergo the guardian dragon's trial. But I didn't. Thinking of this, I decided to modify my original third question. I said, I want to know why I was chosen by the ancient dragon. Road Bullock laughed and said, how can you be so sure that you are the only one chosen? Don't forget, there are a total of 31 relics. You only have a mere 3 pieces on you. Although this information is simply too much, it also made me feel terrified. Black Dragon, Edward, and Grandma Curson also know about the ancient dragon relics like me. If they were also chosen by the relics, then they would also be able to see that blue prompt panel. Even more absurdly, they might be reincarnators like me. Originally, I asked questions wanting to understand the truth of the world better, but now it has become even more complicated instead. The Nameless Monarch, feared even by ancient dragons, and the possibility of other reincarnators besides me. At this time, Road Bullock said that the 3 questions had been answered, and the reward would be given next. Although there is no magic book here like the one the Black Snow organization got, these treasures are several times better than it. Then Road Bullock said, under your feet are treasures from all over the world. No matter which one you choose, its effect will be beyond anything you can imagine, so please start choosing, Chosen One. At this moment, a strange idea suddenly popped into my mind. I said, what I want is the guillotine. Hearing this, Road Bullock, the dragon, was stunned. What is a guillotine? Meanwhile, on the other side, Eswin was still hunting demon beasts with his teammates. Counting this green bell, he had already killed 57 demon beasts. Then Eswin asked his subordinate behind him, does any of you know Tir's current progress? A subordinate replied with disdain, I don't know if that kid is afraid of death and hiding. I heard that his record is still 0 so far. But he was a little doubtful whether following Eswin was the right choice. This was the 8th time he had asked about Tir's record. Unexpectedly, Eswin seemed to see through this subordinate. The next second, he directly grabbed his neck and said fiercely, am I afraid of that trash? If that guy dares to appear in front of me, I will immediately tear him to pieces. At this time, another subordinate behind him interrupted Eswin's punishment of the subordinate. He said, Lord Edward wants you to go find him, and go immediately. On the other side, when Road Bullock asked me what reward I wanted, I actually shouted out her name shyly. Hearing my answer, Road Bullock was indeed a bit confused. She said, I'll assume you're joking for now, but I must say that's a pretty interesting idea. Then Road Bullock asked me the same question again. I responded with determined eyes. I have already said what I want. The next second, Road Bullock instantly became enraged. Immediately after, she even used Dragon's Wrath on me. I am an existence that has lived for over 2,000 years. You're playing word games with me here? Do you really think I wouldn't break the contract and not give you a single treasure? I didn't respond immediately. Now I needed to show her my attitude. I had to endure its Dragon's Wrath. But this power was more than 10 times stronger than the demon wolf I encountered before. So, in order to reduce the burden of damage on my body, I used the demon dragon's Wrath to resist her. But in Road Bullock's eyes, a low-level dragon species like the demon wolf was merely like an ant that could be easily stepped on and killed. I roared at Road Bullock, you promised me that you would give me any treasure, no matter how valuable, and you, as a guardian dragon, should also be among them. Why can't I choose you? This was a gamble for me. If she didn't agree with what I said, then I would surely die here today. But if I could obtain her, she would definitely be worth 1,000 times more than obtaining any other treasure. After all, as the companion of ancestor Sigurd, obtaining obtaining her is also proof of powerful legitimacy. She is enough to assist me in establishing myself as the strongest person on the continent. So even if I die, I must seize a chance. I said, I don't need you to sign a contract with me. I only need your consent. Just as my words fell, Road Bullock's heart suddenly wavered, because she saw the shadow of Sigurd in me. Then she let out a deep sigh and said, all right, I promise you. Immediately after, Road Bullock's body continuously shrank. Finally, she revealed her human form in front of me. She smiled and said to me, you truly exceed my understanding of humans. I have inexplicably developed a little interest in you. Now I will generously give you a chance to become my companion. And seeing me standing there foolishly, daydreaming about something, Road Bullock reminded me, don't be captivated by my beauty. My body is already over 2,000 years old. Little did she know that her words had no effect on me. At this moment, my gaze was fixed on the black hole on her chest. Seeing this, Road Bullock explained, I lost my dragon heart 50 years ago. Now I have less than 3 years until my death, so I cannot leave this place. In other words, compared to treasures, I can't provide you with direct and substantial help. But even so, do you still insist on choosing me? Hearing this, I smiled with satisfaction and said, of course. And from now on, I will become stronger and find more relics of the ancient dragon. I firmly believe that among these relics, there must be something that can replace your dragon heart. Meanwhile, I gained the title of Guardian Dragon's Companion. I also established a mental link with Road Bullock and obtained a large amount of experience for leveling up. She said, then please take care of me from now on. But as I just said, I can't leave this dragon's lair. So, until you find a relic to replace my dragon heart, I will choose to hibernate here. Then Road Bullock took out a magic book and said, there is something I need you to accomplish. Master this magic book thoroughly and open the Thunder Gate. Only then can we truly establish a mental bond. And the moment I received the magic book, I was extremely excited. This was the treasure that Black Snow obtained in my previous life. Amon's magic book. It seems the reason lies in Road Bullock's demise 3 years from now. This way the timeline can match up. At this time, Road Bullock said she would only give me 1 month because she believed I could do it. I said apologetically, I am currently participating in the second assessment of the awakening ritual, and there is less than half a month left until the end, so I asked if I could come back to cultivate after the awakening ceremony ended. Road Bullock said yes, but she wasn't agreeing to my suggestion. Instead, she gave me another solution. That is to master this magic book thoroughly and open the Thunder Gate before the second assessment ends. She stated that she hated nothing more than having her decisions defied. Now I only have 310 hours. But right now, I haven't even killed a single low-level demon beast. Although it is indeed a bit rushed, in this life I have awakened my dragon heart early. In my previous life, I learned from the Black Snow organization that to successfully awaken Amon's magic book, mastering the quality and quantity of magic power is the most important thing. With their assistance, I might even be able to complete the cultivation and the task in less than 13 days. The scene changes, and time quickly passed 12 days. At this time, Road Bullock was very surprised, once again refreshing her understanding of me. She said, well done, Tir. You successfully opened the Thunder Gate in just 12 days. From now on, we are truly physical companions. When you go back, you need to put more effort into this magic book. Once you reach a certain realm, you will be able to hear my thoughts at all times. You can even borrow my power to use. Of course, the premise is that you have to keep me alive 3 years from now. Otherwise, everything will eventually become fleeting. I said, don't worry. I will definitely keep my promise and find a relic of the ancient dragon that can replace your dragon heart. My words comforted her empty heart. Then she waved her hand. A powerful surge of teleportation magic instantly surrounded my body. She declared that all her covenants with Sigurd were ended. Looking forward to our next meeting, the new companion after 1,000 years. But after being teleported out of the dragon's lair by Road Bullock, I immediately fell into a predicament. There was less than 8 hours left until the second assessment of the awakening ritual. It would be impossible to get first place by conventionally hunting demon beasts. So now there is only one way for me to turn things around. That is to plunder others' scores. In my previous life, Eswin got first place in the second assessment. So the person with the highest score now is probably him. One can only say that fate likes to do strange things, so my first target for plunder is Eswin. As long as I defeat him, I can logically inherit his current first place position. Meanwhile, on the other side, Eswin was also in a difficult situation. Before the second assessment of the awakening ritual even began, his uncle Edward had found him. Edward took out a black bead from a totem that could isolate demon beasts and said, this is a demon beast summoning bead. As long as you amplify the aura of the demon beast sealed inside, you can isolate lower level demon beasts. But if you crush it directly, the bead will perform its most basic function, summoning demon beasts. This means you can summon demon beasts at will. The second assessment of the awakening ceremony is to see who gets the most points by dealing with demon beasts. Given Tir's personality, he will definitely go all out to deal with high-risk demon beasts first. Hearing this, Eswin understood that Ed wanted him to use this bead to lure Tir over and then kill him. Edward said, you're half right, but before finding the ancient dragon relic hidden in the Rose Palace, you must keep Tir alive. Eswin came up with a good idea, which was to capture me and interrogate me. This was exactly what Edward was thinking, but he still felt it needed careful consideration, because currently, my strength is not much different from Eswin's, and might even be stronger than his. So, in Edward's opinion, this method didn't seem feasible. He said, Tir spent a lot of effort on useless emotions. Capture that group of people as hostages. Using this to threaten him to reveal clues about the ancient dragon relic is more reliable. But even though Eswin had always kept Ed's instructions in mind, now, with only 8 hours left until the end of the assessment, I still hadn't shown up. Just then, Felix Ragnar, currently ranked 7th, walked over. He He also couldn't find any clues about me. He concluded that I had been dealt with by rascals arranged by veteran dragon wolf Ragnar. But Eswin felt speechless. He didn't expect the star of hope of the Plum Blossom Palace to be so ignorant. As expected, there was a reason why Osha Ragnar was so eager to get Tir. Hearing this, Felix was so angry his lungs were about to explode. He hated nothing more than others using this to provoke him, but he could only temporarily swallow his anger. Suddenly, Eswin ordered all members of the Azure Dragon Society, saying, "Since Tir is deliberately hiding, we won't wait for him anymore. Now, let's proceed according to the original plan." Little did they know that Eswin's actions were all seen by REI, who was hiding not far away. The scene changes. At this time, Sybil and others successfully hunted a yellow-grade demon beast. Before they could be happy for 2 seconds, a sword from behind pierced Sybil's body. The person who came was someone from the Azure Dragon Society. They came according to orders to deal with the people who followed Tir Ragnara. But I was completely unaware of this. At this moment, I was searching everywhere for Eswin's whereabouts. But suddenly, a mysterious person called out to me from behind. She said, "I finally found you, Tir Ragnara." Seeing that the person was actually Ray Ragnar, I was greatly shocked. Had she encountered a demon beast attack? Why was she so severely injured? I originally intended to ask Ray what had happened. My eyes immediately locked onto the sword wound on her chest, which was still fresh. It seemed she was likely bullied by others. I said, "Who injured you like this?" Hearing this, Ray replied, "That's not important. You must hurry west now." But suddenly Ray stumbled, and then she plunged into my arms. At the same time, the moment my hand touched hers, I activated the soul synchronization skill, preparing to read her memories. In her memory, Ray Ragnar was hiding behind a tree, secretly spying on all of Eswin's plans. I also saw that the young fans who came to participate in the second assessment were all tied up, and they were seriously injured. Standing in front of them was Eswin. It was obvious that this was Eswin's plan. Eswin said, "There's no need to capture so many people as hostages. 2 or 3 are enough. As for the rest, just throw them all to feed the demon beasts." Ray finally couldn't hold back and shouted at Eswin, "You better not mess around. This kind of behavior will be severely punished by the court of law." But when he saw that the person who came was merely Ray Ragnar, Eswin didn't take her seriously at all. He said, "This has nothing to do with you. If you don't want to get into trouble, hurry up and scram." The next second, Ray drew her sword and said, "Who says it has nothing to do with me? Tir's friends are my friends." Eswin said coldly, "It seems you are determined to oppose me today, so don't blame me for feeding you to the demon beasts as well." As soon as he finished speaking, Ray darted forward, ready to strike first. However, Eswin's strength had already far surpassed the other Northern 4 lords. He simply used a single unsheathed sword strike, easily blocked Ray's attack and severely injured her body. Reading the memory was forcefully terminated here. The system prompt indicated that due to my insufficient qualification, the use of the skill had reached its limit. In order to figure out Eswin's intentions, I asked Ray why Eswin wanted to harm the people from the 4th training field. Hearing this, Ray was very surprised. She hadn't said anything yet, so how did Tir know? Under my repeated urgent requests, Ray explained that he had planned to get rid of you since before the second assessment began, but because you had no score record and couldn't even be seen until close to the end. So he planned to use your friends as hostages to lure you out. But I'm not here to tell you this. I interrupted her. "Where is Eswin? I'm going there personally to settle the score with him now. In my previous life, it was fine to bully me. In this life, he even wants to bully me and my friends. But this time, I couldn't get an answer from Ray. She said, "You can't go find him. The proctors belonging to the directorate are Edward's people. They are in league. Even if you go, you can't deal with so many people alone. This second assessment is not an assessment at all, but a carefully prepared slaughter. They want to get rid of you." I thanked Ray, but I really had no time now. I said, "Please tell me quickly where he is." Ray said, "Are you an idiot? If you go alone, you're definitely going to die. So please tell me. If you die, can you effectively solve this problem?" I said, "Of course I know. And precisely because I know I must go, I don't want to experience losing my companions again." Ray said, "I understand how you feel, but you have to understand that this is Ragnar, where strength is paramount. Sacrifice is something that can happen here every day." Unexpectedly, in the next second, Ray's anger instantly disappeared because of a sentence I said. I said, "You know these things, but you stood up when Eswin was violent. Clearly, you also didn't want to stand by and do nothing. I've had enough of living a cowardly life. The reason I am so eager to become stronger is because I want to step on everyone who bullied me in the past, and those who are still trying to bully me now." Meanwhile, on the other side, a member of the Azure Dragon Society suddenly ran to tell Eswin, "The useless Tir has appeared. He is now at the cliff at the northern end of the Winter Mountain Range, and Ray Ragnar, whom you severely injured, is also there." Hearing this, Eswin laughed wildly. "You finally appeared. Now I will prove that I am the new king." But suddenly, a telepathic message stopped Eswin's arrogance. "Don't forget what I told you. Make good use of the hostages to get clues about the ancient dragon relic. Anyway, you can get rid of him anytime, just absolutely not now. Next, just follow the steps I told you before." Although Eswin verbally promised, given his personality, there will definitely be bloodshed today. On the other side, at this time, Wellington passed by the location where Sybil collected supplies, looking at the mess on the ground, and a bloody bell. Wellington concluded that they must have encountered trouble, so he said to Horcus, who was standing behind him, "If you don't mind me wasting your time, please lend me a hand next." On the other side, after I convinced Ray to tell me everything, I quickly rushed towards the location where my companions were kidnapped. In this life, I no longer want to repeat the same mistakes. I want to step on everyone who bullied me in the past, and those who still hold on Tojiao Xing Xin Li now. And now, Eswin and his group have actively come to trouble me again. Then I will fight to the end. But after I defeated a snow orc on the way, my movement attracted dozens more snow orcs. These demon beasts posed no threat to me at all. But what I need to do first first now is to race against time. Only then will the probability of Sybil and the others surviving be greater. Suddenly, a light bulb went off in my head. Edward must have done his homework on getting rid of me without causing a commotion. For example, as Ray just said, many of the proctors are Edward's people, but I also have my winning plan, because I know Eswin is a guy who hates being bossed around. So as long as I seize this variable in him, I don't need to worry about any other opponents besides him. At this moment, facing the large group of snow orcs, I immediately activated my ultimate move. I successively used combined skills on them, Dragon 3/, instantly eliminating all of them. The only one left alive was that ultimate snow orc. I seized the interval in its roar to increase my skill attributes, then leaped high, and held the white moonlight blade in a reverse grip. Finally, I pierced the snow orc's fatal weakness without any error. After dealing with all the obstacles in my way, I rushed forward again. On the other side, Ray finally made up her mind. Besides her mother, she might be the companion who understands me the most right now. You've been like this since childhood. There's nothing I can do about you. This time, I will reluctantly lend you a hand. Over at Sybil's place, they were still being humiliated every single second. Eswin hated guys like them the most, those who had no strength but were very good at talking. He said, "You better shut up obediently. Otherwise, don't blame me for cutting you down right now." And another telepathic message appeared. Don't forget what the director said. Creating unnecessary variables doesn't help us. Although Eswin was annoyed, he still obediently put away his weapon. But suddenly, his expression twisted again. At this moment, he was so angry his lungs were about to explode. To kill Tir, Edward had sent 4 additional high-level swordsmen for him. It seemed Uncle didn't believe I could win after all. Meanwhile, I finally reached my destination. My companions looked at me as if they had seen hope. They believed I could save them. Eswin immediately turned serious. He said, "I can't believe you actually dared to come alone, Tir Ragnar. I've been waiting for you here for a long time." Hearing this, I didn't rush to respond. My eyes began to scan the surroundings, looking at my companions who had been beaten so severely, and Sybil, who had fallen unconscious. My anger reached its peak. I almost couldn't resist drawing the white moonlight blade to launch an attack. Eswin also immediately prepared to draw his sword, ready to fight at any moment. Unexpectedly, the voice transmission appeared again. "You need to show restraint. I've told you many times not to create unnecessary variables." Hearing this, Eswin let out a deep sigh. Then he said to me, "Since you already know my purpose, let's not waste words. If you want to save these worthless people, then—" But before he could finish, I interrupted him. "Are you afraid?" Eswin asked puzzledly. "Are you saying your presence makes you afraid? You truly don't know your limits." Hearing this, I responded with a calm smile. "You're not just afraid. You're also terrified of losing to me in this awakening ceremony. If that weren't the case, you wouldn't be putting on this despicable hostage show in front of me. But I understand how you feel. After all, I did take first place in the first test that you had your heart set on. No wonder you'd resort to such petty schemes." I said this to provoke Eswin's most prominent sense of pride and create a variable. I continued, "Why don't we have a duel? I won't force you if you don't dare. After all, I am indeed stronger than you." Eswin was clearly flustered now, which was exactly the result I wanted. I said, "If I lose this duel, anything you want, including my head, I'll give to you without a second word. But if I win—" Before I could finish, Eswin suddenly clutched his head and burst into maniacal laughter. He said, "You worthless trash actually think I'd be afraid of you?" At this moment, that voice transmission appeared again. It was from those 4 high-level swordsmen secretly hiding in the forest. But at this point, they couldn't stop Eswin's impulse. Eswin shouted, "Shut up. I must kill this trash today." Then Eswin walked forward slowly and said, "Next will be Ragnar's sword duel segment. No one is to interfere in the slightest until it's over, or don't blame me for being discourteous." With that, the duel officially began. I immediately took the initiative, drawing my sword and thrusting forward. Although this move couldn't cause any harm to Eswin, it was a warning to him that he could never be my match. During the standoff between rounds, Eswin taunted me mercilessly. "What skills could a bastard like you possibly have, to dare speak so arrogantly time and again? Now let me show you what power a pure Ragnar bloodline truly possesses." Having said that, Eswin used his ultimate move, Roar of the Celestial Dragon. His sword energy transformed into a giant dragon rushing fiercely toward me. The intimidation of this move was indeed strong, but now I had the support of many skills that I didn't have in my previous life. As I brought my sword down, I directly matched Eswin's ultimate move evenly. He was utterly shocked. I said, "So do you really think you can beat me with your current strength? However, I might be able to give you a chance to reconsider." At this moment, everyone present was stunned by this scene. Judging by the current situation, I clearly had the upper hand. One of the Azure Dragon Society members even contemplated defection. He thought, back during the first awakening ceremony, I was half doubtful about Tyr's strength. But after witnessing it now, he's actually become much stronger again. But just as he was hesitating whether to switch allegiances, the voice transmission behind him dispelled this thought. "Quickly execute the next step of the plan. Divert the attention of examiners who aren't our people." Hearing this, the man immediately turned and commanded, "Everyone disperse according to the previous plan. Make sure the examiners don't discover or approach this area. As for Tir Ragnar, leave him to our leader, Eswin." Meanwhile, Eswin's thoughts were drawn back to when he was 3 years old, when Edward set a life goal for him, to seize Ragnar's supreme throne. Edward had said, "Ragnar is merely a shell for your disguise. In the future, everything that belongs to you will return to the Troyman's surname." Though Eswin didn't quite understand Uncle Edward's implied meaning when he was young, during his duel with me, he truly understood everything. At the same time, a soldier responsible for the second test came to report that Tir Ragnar had appeared. Hearing this, Urias was extremely excited. I knew Tir wouldn't have any problems. Wolf was confused. He thought I had been secretly killed by the people he arranged. Edward breathed a sigh of relief, because his plan wasn't to kill me immediately. After extracting the clues about the ancient dragon relic in Rose Palace, it wouldn't be too late to secretly kill me. Just then, the conversation between two soldiers behind him caught Edward's attention. I heard Tir and Eswin are deciding victory through a Ragnar family sword duel. Edward was stunned. He had repeatedly warned not to create unnecessary variables, but Eswin just wouldn't listen. Now he could only pray that Eswin would win this duel. Meanwhile, my battle with Eswin entered another intense phase. Although I used unpredictable footwork, Eswin fought with increasing vigor. He could block my attacks with virtually no error, accurately predicting their directions. Eswin acknowledged in his heart that my progress was indeed astonishingly fast. But fast progress didn't mean all abilities would improve. In Eswin's view, my movement speed was slightly inferior to his, and he had even seen through the pattern of my attacks. The next second, Eswin suddenly hurled his sword with great force. This move was one of the sword techniques Edward had taught him. Piercing sword of release. Its speed was so fast that even I, who had just retracted my attack, couldn't react in time. Finally, out of desperation, I had to forcibly catch Eswin's sword with my bare hands. Little did I know this familiar feeling would remind me of the scene before my rebirth. Back then, I stood up enduring intense physical pain, ready to fight Landon to the death. As a result, a sword suddenly pierced my heart. It turned out that the face I desperately tried to see clearly while dying was actually Eswin's. It seems my previous deduction was wrong. On the day of my death, I frantically tried to find the culprit who burned down Rose Palace, although I had no strength. Landon fortunately took off his mask while showing off at the end. Plus, based on what Evelyn told me about Blue Lamp's deep connection with Edward, that's why I was able to make a directed identification of the person who ultimately killed me. It was likely Edward. However, later, I had another basis for my deduction. That piercing sword of release was one of Ade's killing moves, but Edward wasn't as arrogant as Eswin, because using this move might result in losing one's weapon, so he would use it very cautiously. After learning the identity of my killer, my emotions instantly surged. Then, with a forceful grip, I immediately crushed Eswin's sword to pieces. Next, I used the same technique to give him a response. Even though Eswin easily dodged it by tilting his head, the killing intent emanating from me at this moment was my true response to him. Feeling this pressure, Eswin obviously began to panic. He didn't understand what this killing intent was all about. This was normal, after all. I was exerting all the power I had cultivated so far. I activated the dragon's heart I had awakened in this life. The only explanation Eswin could think of was that I had hidden my strength during the first awakening ceremony. But while Eswin was pondering, my figure had already flashed in front of him. I have to admit that Eswin deserved to be the strongest among the four lords of the north. He could still react and block my charging strike. Then I taunted him, saying, "If this is your full strength, then you've lost completely and utterly." Suddenly, my hand was forcefully grabbed by Eswin, and my neck was hurt by his sword. To break free, I quickly used my white moonlight blade to kick up a layer of snowy mud into his eyes. Only then did I successfully escape his control and create distance. But in just the blink of an eye, my shadow appeared in front of Eswin again. I immediately slashed wildly, knocking Eswin's long sword flying. Next, I prepared to let him also experience what it feels like to have his heart pierced. The strong rule: the weak can only die. At the moment I was about to draw my sword and pierce Eswin's heart, unexpectedly, a mysterious person appeared. Time goes back to the moment when Wellington discovered Sybil and others had encountered trouble. Additionally, he found that many blood traces on the ground weren't from monsters, but were man-made. If Sybil and the others were injured and dragged away, only Eswin would dare do such a thing. Horkus puzzledly said, "Eswin is already first in this test. Getting more bells won't change the results of the first test," Wellington explained, "because Eswin might want to eliminate Tir, so he's using Sybil as a hostage." Horkus was shocked. Eswin is truly despicable. Doing this would indeed change the results of the first test. But Horkus's sister Erica held an opposing attitude. The test doesn't prohibit doing this. Hearing this, Wellington didn't know how to respond. After contemplating for a moment, he firmly said, "This is why you don't understand Tir, but I believe once you truly get to know him, you'll understand. Now I ask for your assistance." Hearing this, Horkus said, "Sister, look how interesting this is. Why don't you come with us?" But Erica refused. "I'm following you because you know Tir Ragnara, but we haven't even seen him yet, and I hate weak people who need to be rescued, so you go by yourselves." Seeing this, Horkus looked down on his sister's decision. At the same time, Wellington also chimed in, "Actually, I know why Erica wants to meet Tir. I swear to heaven, if you come with me, it will definitely be of great help to you." And so, with the two of them working together, Erica agreed. The three then began to search for Eswin's location, but they had barely run half a kilometer when they were intercepted by a group of people who had ambushed in this area, members of the Azure Dragon Society. The leader was Orion, who had earlier considered defection. "Long time no see, Wellington, but you actually abandoned us to side with that trash." Judging from Erica's expression, she clearly didn't know who the person referred to was. Wellington said coldly, "I don't want to deal with old friends. Please step aside." Hearing this, Orion brazenly refused. Wellington said, "If that's the case, then we'll have to deal with you roadblockers first." Meanwhile, on the other side, Sybil had awakened from his coma. He was untying himself with a short sword held between his thighs. That's right. Earlier, when I deliberately used the same technique to respond to Eswin, it was because I noticed Sybil was awake, so that's why I used this move, to send Sybil a tool to untie himself, and left the task of rescuing the rest of our companions to him. Scene change. At this moment, I was about to pierce Eswin's heart with one sword, but was suddenly blocked by a mysterious person. This was something I hadn't anticipated. I chose to duel with Eswin to prevent a scenario of being outnumbered, but I also recognized the other person's identity. His name was Liam Troyman. At this time, Liam suddenly said, "I'm sorry, young Master Eswin. Please forgive my interference. After the test is over, I will personally come to you to accept punishment." Then he ordered his three companions to stand beside Eswin. The remaining work would be be left to him. Due to the excessive consumption from the battle with Eswin, facing this opponent who was exerting full strength, I was somewhat unable to cope. But if one were to conclude that my strength was inferior to that of a high-level swordsman, that would be a grave mistake. After experiencing my swordsmanship, Liam was also extremely shocked. He also understood why Eswin had fallen into a disadvantageous position. My strength had long surpassed my peers. He said, although it's a pity to kill a talent like you, for the sake of Troyman, I must eliminate you. Goodbye, Tir Ragnara. I will bury you properly. The moment Liam finished speaking, his heart was inexplicably pierced by a sharp weapon. Seeing it was Eswin, he asked, young master, why did you do this? I'm on your side, Eswin said. Before the duel, I specifically said no one could interfere with our fight. Suddenly, Eswin's expression turned ferocious. Could it be that you thought I would lose, so you chose to intervene? This is clearly an insult to me as the future heir of Ragnar. Next, Eswin turned to me and said, I acknowledge your strength, but acknowledgement is as far as it goes. I won't allow anyone stronger than me to exist. I will become the strongest descendant of Ragnar and occupy the position of the next heir. So I absolutely cannot lose to someone of your low level here. I will personally destroy any obstacle that affects my path to godhood. Having said that, Eswin immediately raised his long blade, then quickly concentrated his magical power on it and slashed down at me. But just as this attack fell, I had already leapt above his head. Taking advantage of the gap in Eswin's attack, I landed a precise hit on him. Seeing Liam severely wounded, his subordinates immediately ran over to rescue him. Unexpectedly, they were met with Liam's furious rebuke. He said, don't care about whether I live or die. Focus all your efforts on helping young Master Eswin kill Tir Ragnara. Hearing this, the subordinates initially thought about defying the order, especially since even their leader had been backstabbed for interfering. But after hearing what Liam said next, they truly understood this order had to be carried out. If Eswin died here today, they would probably only face death upon their return. On the other side, Eswin was still attempting to fight me while showing off. He recalled what Edward had told him before. No descendant of Ragnar should be underestimated, because they are like candles extinguished in the wind. With just a slight chance, they can rekindle. At that time, Eswin didn't acknowledge Edward's words, which changed Edward's view of him considerably. He always believed that the difference in strength between Tir and Eswin wasn't significant, but despite how things had developed, Eswin was still self-absorbed in his own inner world. He said, a bastard like you with impure blood, I could tear you to shreds with one hand. Only I can become the strongest in the north and inherit Ragnar's supreme throne. Now Eswin's arrogance prompted him to use his ultimate move again, Roar of the Celestial Dragon. However, for me who had now activated the dragon's heart, blocking attacks of this level was easier than eating. So let me use the abilities I've attained so far to slaughter all of you who wish to eliminate me and those close to me. As I released my combination technique ultimate move, Dragon Triple Slash, Eswin's pupils instantly contracted. He finally truly witnessed the extent of the gap between us. It was no longer what Edward had described as not much difference in strength. Finally, Eswin met his end under this move of mine. His head was cut off by my own hands. I had ultimately won this battle. Seeing their young master tragically killed, those high-level swordsmen sent by Edward to assist Eswin were all frightened, their pupils contracting. At this time, Liam suddenly shouted, "What are you all stunned for? Quickly kill Tir Ragnara!" In an instant, the other three high-level swordsmen immediately charged forward with their weapons. To this, I remained disdainful. However, this time it wasn't because I could handle it. With my stamina nearly exhausted, I couldn't possibly defeat these fully energized opponents. It seemed I would have to die here. However, in the next second, the turning point that would allow my story to continue appeared. The group of companions who had been through life and death with me suddenly appeared, blocking the enemy's attacks for me. Not only that, Horkus and his sister had also come to help, so I asked them how they knew my location. Wellington responded, "Isn't it only right to rescue a comrade in danger? But this is actually all thanks to Sybil. He led us here." Next, Wellington fixed his gaze on the enemies. He said, "Don't you know that this behavior is a serious crime? Killing a candidate during the awakening ceremony?" After hearing these words, the other side began to waver. They immediately used voice transmission to ask Liam's opinion. What should we do now? Liam was still in a pessimistic mood. They had not only failed to extract clues about the ancient dragon relic in Rose Palace, but also failed in the plan to assassinate Tir Ragnara. And even worse, the unexpected death of Eswin had occurred. But soon Liam adjusted his emotions. At the same time, he thought of a plan that could turn the tide. That was to kill everyone who witnessed the scene. Liam also transmitted this order to the remaining 3 team members. Create a false scenario where the candidates were unfortunately killed by monsters, and destroy all evidence of Troyman's involvement. Then he took out the secret weapon that Edward had originally ordered to be used on Tir Ragnara, and poured all of it out. These were black summoning beads contained in totems used to intimidate surrounding monsters. Once destroyed, they would summon the monsters sealed inside. Everything he did was to protect Troyman. Unknown to him, in the next second, a sword suddenly came flying, piercing Liam's heart again. It was the examiner of this second awakening ceremony. Not only were there people from Plum Palace, but also white armor dragon knights. After dealing with Liam, a member of the white armor dragon knights scolded, "If you don't want to end up like your leader, you 3 had better give up resistance and surrender." At this point, my crisis was completely resolved. At the same time, due to exhaustion, I didn't even have the strength to stand. But I didn't fall on the snow. I fell into Ray's arms. I said, "Thank you for everything you told me before." Ray said it was nothing, then criticized me for being so reckless. At this time, Wellington shouted, "Tir, we're good friends. Why didn't you ask for my help with something so dangerous?" Sybil and the others wept and said, "Thank you. We didn't expect you to rush here immediately to rescue us." Ray said, "But anyway, Tir, it's really good that you're alive." But before going back, I still shamelessly said, "Please help me take the bells dropped by Eswin. I still want to try to get first place in this second test." Meanwhile, on the other side, the soldier responsible for reporting the test status suddenly ran into the conference room. He told the 9 dragons a piece of unexpected news. Eswin was dead. On the other side, the second test came to an end. When everyone saw that the examiner had been changed, their expressions turned curious and surprised. No one expected that he, who hadn't shown his face for years, would come here to serve as an examiner. He was one of the 9 dragons, Heir Ragnara. Looking at the score registration form, he muttered, "I didn't expect this session's second test to have a 50% pass rate, with only 1 death. Especially the first place score, young people are truly formidable." Then Heir announced an important matter to everyone present. Effective immediately, all apprentice swordsmen who qualified in the second test would be promoted to junior swordsmen. Next, Heir announced the rankings for the second awakening ceremony. First place with 1121 points was still successfully taken by me, Tir Ragnara. Second place Wellington, 926 points. Third place Erica, 843 points. Fourth place Ray, 789 points. Fifth place Horkus, 621 points. Just as the rankings were announced, Heir suddenly told those 45 qualified candidates that only 4 people would be eligible for the third test. They were Wellington, Erica, Ray, and me. The reason others weren't qualified was because they hadn't collected bells with a formula during the second test. These things were extremely rare, divided into speed formula and invisible formula. Even if someone was lucky enough to get one, they might not understand the principles contained within. Although I wasn't among Ragnar's list of geniuses, my system and the rewards it brought were enough to put me on a level above genius. The incantations I couldn't understand in my previous life, I now needed just a glance to see everything they contained. I remembered that Ray and Wellington didn't qualify in my previous life. Was it because I changed history? Seeing 4 qualified students, Heir was overjoyed, making his return trip worthwhile. Then Heir motioned for us to come up in order of rank to demonstrate what we had enlightened from the incantations. The so-called enlightenment was to give magical power an elemental attribute. At this time, as first place, I walked out amid the envious gazes of those around me, although history had changed because of me. With Eswin now killed by my own hands, I believed there would be nothing that could make me feel afraid in the future. After releasing my magical power, I told Heir that the elemental attribute I obtained was lightning. At the same time, the stage I was currently at was giving my magical power the lightning element attribute. In an instant, my magical power had changed from its most basic color to that of lightning. The degree of compatibility reached the discovery level, but this wasn't my limit. The dragon's heart I possessed in this life hadn't yet displayed its true power, and with the enhancement of the dragon's heart, my compatibility instantly soared to the control level. Seeing this, Heir excitedly said, "I didn't expect you to be truly, as they say, an extremely talented new generation." The moment Heir finished speaking, his pupils contracted, because my compatibility stage didn't end at the control level. Instead, it continued pushing towards an even higher level. Finally, I successfully raised the compatibility level to the expansion stage. At the same time, I did something that shocked everyone. Without a second thought, I unleashed my new secret technique on Heir, Lightning Dragon Slash. When he saw my attack about to hit him, Heir immediately waved his hand. Using his technique, water pressure cross-section, easily neutralizing my secret technique, he said, "A mere junior swordsman actually has the courage to challenge the 9 dragons. You've truly raised my expectations of you even more. I've decided to add 1,000 points to your original score as a reward." This was Heir's character. He greatly appreciated those who dared to challenge him, and I had properly utilized this information. Thus, my second test score directly reached 2,121 points, far exceeding the second place's 195 points. This also shocked Horkus. This score was more than 3 times his. Next came the demonstrations of the other 3. In the end, Wellington gave his magic the water element attribute, reaching the control level of compatibility, and received an additional 500 points. Ray gave her magic the ice element attribute, reaching the discovery level of compatibility, and received an additional 300 points. Erica gave hers the fire element attribute, reaching the discovery level of compatibility, and received an additional 300 points. Afterwards, those students who weren't qualified for the third test gradually left the examination site. After only the 4 of us remained, Heir solemnly announced to us, effective immediately, the third test officially begins. In an instant, a powerful pressure immediately made us struggle to breathe. So this was the power possessed by the 9 dragons. Truly terrifying. The content of the third test was to see who could meet the family head dragon god the fastest. As for the ranking, it would be determined by the priority of meeting with the family head. Additionally, this meeting would decide whether one qualified to enter the list of Ragnar heir candidates. The 5 who had already entered were the same. There were never shortcuts to becoming the heir in Ragnar. At this time, Erica voiced her complaints. Not to mention that the 9 dragons' pressure was already making us struggle to breathe. But we still had to cross the Dragon Valley ahead bearing the family head's pressure. How were we supposed to overcome this? Hearing this, I gave the most straightforward response, reverse the direction of their pressure waves. My words immediately confused Erica. Wellington explained, Tir means we need to actively interfere with the pressure waves, making their pressure on us gradually weaken. Magic itself exists in the form of waves, with vibrating properties. Their pressure on us is formed through waves. So we must calculate the corresponding pressure waves to counter their pressure waves. I added, if you can't even control and adjust magic with subjective consciousness, you have no qualification to meet the family head. The next second, Erica showed an expression of disbelief. I thought she finally understood. But she suddenly asked, aren't we from the same country? Why is what you're saying so difficult for me to understand? Then, Erica shared her interpretation. So we need to create magical power that counters this pressure, right? Wellington nodded, indicating she was more or less correct. But this immediately angered Erica, who cursed Wellington for being so single-minded. If you had just said it like that from the beginning, I I would have understood. Why go in circles with all that unnecessary explanation? While the two of them were arguing, I had already released magical power waves that could neutralize both the 9 dragons and the family head's pressure. Witnessing this, Wellington and Erica froze in place, speechless. I said, if you aim to become the lower realm's family head, you should at least be as quick as I am. After that, I maintained this magical power wave as I rushed toward Dragon Valley. Fair was amazed by this, believing I had the demeanor of that person, and looked forward to my future performance. However, he turned around and kindly reminded us, the third test ranking is determined on a first-come, first-served basis. You'd better hurry, or you might not even qualify for the meeting. Meanwhile, at Winter Cypress Palace, my mother Cecilia was in the middle of an important negotiation. Unexpectedly, my grandmother Kelson abruptly pushed the door open and shouted, "Your mother, I have great news to tell you." Hearing this, Cecilia responded wearily, no matter how great the news is. I've told you many times that when you come here, you need to maintain proper decorum. Kelson ignored the talk of decorum once again. Your mother is finally going to be rich. Since our Tir's popularity skyrocketed, Basque Workshop has been receiving endless orders. I'll make extra accessories and raise custom prices to 10 times the original. No, 20 times. Hearing this, Cecilia did want to be happy, but she was more concerned about my current situation in the awakening ceremony. Even though I had achieved first place in both the first and second tests, she could only wait quietly in Winter Cypress Palace now. She felt the only way she could help me was to provide substantial support for my future life. She firmly believed I would ultimately triumph and gain the family head's recognition, so she had prepared important ceremonial robes for me well in advance. But just then, Cecilia suddenly interrupted Kelson's wonderful fantasy. She asked, "Mother, do you know how to make prosthetic limbs?" Meanwhile, elsewhere, the dragon god was chatting with a raven. "I know what you're worried about, but as parents, we don't seem to have the right to stop our children's dreams, especially when they're young and impulsive. We went through similar phases ourselves. This place called Black Grave is the best evidence of that." After listening to the dragon god's words, the raven said a few more things. The dragon god told it not to worry because he wanted to see Ragnar achieve even greater prosperity. If anyone dares to interfere, they can be abandoned here just like them. Even if my son is a reincarnator, I will unconditionally support his ascension to the throne. Now, after 4.5 hours of arduous trekking, I finally reached the peak of Dragon Valley while bearing the dragon god's pressure. I met the third test examiner, my father. Yet within his pressure, I still sensed Rodbrock's aura. At this moment, my father suddenly asked if I knew what this place was called. I said, "This is the Black Grave, where all challengers who have fallen under your sword since you became part of the Ragnar family rest." He said, "Exactly. In other words, this is the seat that only the strongest of Ragnar can occupy." As he spoke, my father suddenly asked with murderous intent, "Do you think you are qualified to occupy this position?" Hearing this, I calmly replied, "Of course." To my surprise, my father was unsatisfied with my answer, thinking I responded too casually, because before he stood here, tens of thousands of souls had fallen under his sword. So, my father gave me another chance to answer. I still coolly responded, "Of course." This time my father wasn't dissatisfied, but instead asked why I insisted on this answer. I remained silent. I want to ascend to the strongest throne to end this damned power struggle. For this, I would personally eliminate any obstacle in my way. Obviously, this was not an answer my father could accept. I immediately drew my white moonlight blade and challenged my father to a Ragnar sword duel. Seeing me like this, my father's lips curled into a smile. He naturally understood what I meant. Then he said to me, "I will treat you as a challenger. Let me see what teachings that guy has given you." With these words, I was shocked. He must be referring to Rodbrock. But just as I came to my senses, I suddenly felt the sensation of my upper and lower body separating, and my white moonlight blade broke into 2 pieces. Within my field of vision, I saw my father in the motion of sheathing his sword after executing a draw cut. Had I died, slain by my father as a challenger? Before I could think it through, my consciousness had already left the real world. Now, seeing myself exist as a soul, I became more certain that I was truly dead, but I had no regrets. Compared to my previous life, I had accomplished much more. Seizing Winter Cypress Palace, personally taking the heads of Landon and Eswin, even if there was some luck involved, I still experienced the happiness of existing in this life. But this seemed to be as far as I could reach in this lifetime. Little did I know that the sword strike my father delivered hadn't caused any physical harm. It was a spiritual attack technique called Heart Sword. Though my father felt it was somewhat cruel to use it, if I couldn't survive this attack, I would not be worthy of the Ragnar heir's name, let alone qualified to challenge the supreme authority. Just then, the white moonlight blade suddenly entered my soul realm. It said, "If you give up so easily, I should have just eaten you from the beginning." It was precisely because of these words from the white moonlight blade that my slowly dispersing soul began to coalesce again. Indeed, how could I die here? Heaven gave me a chance to start over and granted me the power to grow stronger. If I still couldn't become the strongest on this continent, that would truly be pathetic. At this moment, as I picked up the white moonlight blade and slashed with all my might, the next second, I actually shattered the soul realm into fragments. Only after my consciousness returned to the real world did I understand that everything that had just happened was merely an illusion. After witnessing my determination, my father gave me an approving smile. He said, "Tir, you've passed." And so this session of the awakening ceremony came to an end, and the time came to announce the final results. At this point, Horkus asked his sister Erica, "So what exactly did you get in the third test? I'm dying to know, please tell me." Erica said, "It's a secret, I can't tell you." But what Horkus said next left Erica somewhat at a loss. If it were Tir, he would tell me everything without reservation. The reason Horkus said this was because their Lanka family's mission was to become Ragnar's sword, pledging their lives to someone in the Ragnar family. So Horkus chose me, a Ragnar rising star with ambition, power, and connections. Hearing this, Erika hurriedly asked, "Have you made a contract with Tir yet?" Horkus answered, "No." This made Erika breathe a huge sigh of relief. At this moment, with the sound of a drum, Judge Barna officially announced, "Tir Ragnara has successfully defended his position as first in this awakening ceremony." As his words fell, the audience erupted in passionate cheers, collectively witnessing this new Ragnar prodigy. But unexpectedly, the next second, Edward suddenly stood up. Seeing this, many people thought he was going to seek justice for Eswin, or even make Tir pay the price immediately. Barna warned, "This is the sacred conclusion of the awakening ceremony. Personal matters should be handled afterward." To everyone's surprise, Edward's next words left the audience stunned and frozen in place. "As the director of the Central Affairs Bureau, I sincerely invite Tir to serve as the deputy director." What? What scheme is this guy plotting? This statement instantly caused a commotion among the peers, who all felt Edward was putting on an act. After all, I had personally killed his beloved nephew Eswin in the second test, so I activated my Eye of Insight to see through Edward's tricks. It turned out he had always coveted the secrets of the ancient dragon relics. Though I indeed possess such relics, in this life, I would absolutely not let him have his way. You can forget about hurting anyone close to me again. Suddenly, Urius angrily shouted, "What game are you playing? Don't treat us all like fools. Everyone knows you want revenge for Eswin's death." Hearing this, Edward denied it. "You all misunderstand me. Though my nephew's death saddens me, such things are commonplace in Ragnar, where strength reigns supreme. I absolutely have no ulterior motives. I just want to bring new talent into my Central Affairs Bureau." However, Urius still didn't believe him, knowing better than anyone that Edward loved to scheme. At this point, Barna reminded, "I know you want to recruit outstanding talent, but the formal nomination process hasn't begun yet." Then Barna asked if I had made my decision, and if not, he could give me another 2.5 minutes to consider. To this, I honestly replied that I hadn't, but further consideration seemed unnecessary. Instead, I wanted to hear what the 9 dragons thought of me. As my words spread throughout the venue, Osha Ragnar spoke first. "As the Princess of Plum Palace, I promise to impart all my lifelong knowledge to Tir." With these words, all the students were extremely envious, because Osha had no children. So after offering to teach me everything, she clearly wanted to adopt me as her son. It seems her earlier special visit wasn't spontaneous. She genuinely wanted me to become the Sword Dragon's heir. With 2 of the 9 dragons favoring me, Wellington admired me very much. Erika believed Osha's promise had reached the limit, and surely no other dragon would make an offer. But things weren't as simple as Erika thought. At this moment, the raven circling above my head suddenly said, "I'd like to join this war for talent too." Then, with lightning speed, it dove toward the ground. When the dust settled, the raven revealed its true form. It was one of the 9 dragons, the Black Dragon, Robert Ragnar. He said, "I've been watching you since the awakening ceremony officially began. Tir was right. There are many interesting aspects about you. So my promise to you is to let you take on the position of No Snow. What do you think?" No Snow was part of the Black Snow Intelligence Organization, its highest rank after the leader, just as valuable as Osha's offer. What I couldn't achieve in half a lifetime in my previous life came so easily this time. Suddenly, Fair interrupted my thoughts. He told me, "Tir's performance has also deeply impressed me. Our Dragon Hall will be unconditionally open to you." Now that 4 of the 9 dragons had responded, only Urius was left. Everyone was eagerly waiting to see what kind of promise he would make. Unexpectedly, as soon as he spoke, the entire audience was baffled. "I won't give any special preferential treatment. If Tir wishes to join my White Dragon Knights, he must climb up from the bottom with his own strength. As for promises, I can only offer 2 points: full support and the pride of representation." After hearing all the 9 dragons' responses to me, I couldn't help but smile. I already had my answer in my heart. But just as I was about to announce it publicly, a sudden voice transmission instantly filled me with terror. Following the aura, I sensed it was from the former family head, Hilda Ragnar. She calmly asked me, "If I'm not mistaken, you're a reincarnator, right?" Though extremely shocked by this, I quickly composed myself and calmly replied, "I don't know what you're talking about." Hilda continued, "Though I don't know how many times you've reincarnated. Your acting is really good." I was stunned. What did she mean? Could there be a limit to reincarnations? Barna, noticing my expression change, asked what was bothering me. To this, I quickly said, "Can I have more time? Let me adjust my state." Barna agreed, but emphasized that the awakening ceremony was important and couldn't be delayed too long. Then, Hilda continued, "You don't need to hide it from me, because I'm like you, except my reincarnation journey has already come to an end." This meant Hilda had reincarnated many times, and her number of reincarnations was used up. But why were there so many reincarnators? How many more were hidden around me? What surprised me most was that she had been the first to discover my secret. To verify my suspicion, I asked Hilda, "Are you saying reincarnation can happen multiple times?" Hilda seemed surprised and said, "You don't even know that? It seems Kir hasn't told you anything. But I must tell you, the thing Kir hates most is reincarnators. So the fact that you returned alive from the 3rd test really makes me curious." Seeing my confused expression, Hilda gave me a suggestion. "If you want to know the secrets of the family and this world, come find me afterward, and I'll tell you." At this point, I seemed to understand many things. The reason my father used the Heart Sword on me was to test my determination as a reincarnator. Regarding the presence of Rodbrock's aura in his energy field, it was likely because the dragon's heart was truly within him. My father's purpose in doing this had an 80% probability of being related to Rodbrock's existence in the world, which was to welcome each reincarnator. I based my judgment on evidence. After all, humans could never defeat dragons. The only one who could was my father, who possessed demigod-level strength. Things were developing more interestingly. I desperately wanted to uncover the secrets of the family and this world. Under Barna's urging, I announced my final choice. To prepare for the great upheaval that would occur in Ragnar 5 years later, I chose to join the the White Dragon Knights with the worst benefits, because only this way could I gain the greatest authority over my own troops, and this was just the first step in my journey to become the Ragnar family head. But this time, Wellington chose not to continue with me. He opted to join the Dragon Hall and become Fair's direct disciple. However, this was still a good beginning. After all, in my previous life, Wellington had given up his reward and chosen to betray Ragnar, returning to his own family to cultivate his rebellious forces. Though I didn't know how much more history would change because of me, it seemed that so far, the changes beneficial to me outnumbered the others. Afterward, we bid each other farewell, all looking forward to how much stronger we would be when we met again. Rei, as expected, returned to her mother, the Ice Dragon's Daffodil Palace. There was no place more suitable for her, and my group of fans all failed to meet the minimum standards for the White Dragon Knights, so we had to part temporarily, but I believed they would all carve out their own paths. Just then, a greeting interrupted my thoughts. Looking closely, it was Horcus. He said, "My sister Erica and I have also chosen to join the White Dragon Knights. Please give us your guidance in the future." It seemed I wouldn't be too lonely in the future. They would certainly become valuable companions on my new path. I then thanked them for their help in the second test. Without them, the position of first might not have been mine. I was just being polite, but Erica took it seriously and said, "Then remember this debt of gratitude." Horcus also showed unusual enthusiasm toward me. I didn't know what these two were planning. Why were they suddenly so fond of me? Before I could think more, Urius came over. "Welcome, all new members of my White Dragon Knights. But before we head to headquarters, as your captain, I'd like to hear about everyone's ambitions." Hearing this, Horcus was the first to speak. "I want to become the most handsome and brave warrior in the Dragon Cavalry." Then came successive statements from other members. "I want everyone to know my name. I want to be the strongest among our peers. I want to earn your exclusive recognition." But in my view, their ambitions weren't enough. I believed Urius felt the same way, so I gave the response that best suited his taste. "I will become the captain of this White Dragon Knights in 5 years." Hearing this, Urius laughed heartily, as expected of the person I regard most highly. But my position isn't so easily shaken. After listening to everyone's statements, Urius had us memorize a passage. "Each drop of your sweat, each drop of your blood will be etched into Ragnar's history like legend. Our shields will not shatter, and our swords will not break. At the end of the road carved with blood and sweat awaits the highest honor. Welcome, new family members of the White Dragon Knights." After these words, a giant dragon suddenly landed behind Urius. Its name was Kun, Urius's battlefield partner. Its species was Renfei Dragon, the sole symbol of White Dragon Knights members. Next came the sacred initiation ceremony, the time to start finding our own partners. "Everyone mount the senior members' flying dragons. The Renfei Dragon's nest is our next gathering point." Looking at Urius's dashing figure, everyone felt awestruck. This was a dragon rider. I too was preparing to meet my flying dragon. At the same time, I spotted a familiar figure. It was my enlightenment teacher Evelyn. "Long time no see, young Master Tir. You indeed kept your word. This choice is just as you told me." Surprised, I asked, "Your appearance here means you've officially returned to the White Dragon Knights?" To this, Evelyn gave an affirmative response. Besides this, there was one thing about Evelyn that puzzled me greatly. Her severed arm had been replaced with a prosthetic. I learned later that this was all thanks to my mother and grandmother. That day, my mother personally found Evelyn, who was training troops, and expressed her most profound gratitude. "Without your help, my son Tir wouldn't have achieved what he has today." Evelyn responded, "I'm just a retired training ground manager now, and even without my intervention, Tir would certainly have succeeded with his natural talent." Cecilia shook her head and said, "Tir once told me you were the only one who supported and acknowledged him. Reliable, and even stronger than imagined. So please don't be so modest, and don't belittle yourself too much. The darkness in Tir's heart was illuminated by your guiding light. I hope you continue to be that light." At this moment, after hearing these words, the gloom in Evelyn's heart began to gradually dissipate. What ultimately emerged was her determination to return to the front lines. And Evelyn swore she would not fail to live up to the gifts Cecilia had specially delivered to her. From now on, she would serve Tir with absolute loyalty. I pondered for a long time. All along, my mother never gave up on me and did everything she could to help me. "Thank you, Mom. In this life, I will definitely let you enjoy the blessings you couldn't in your previous life. And also, please, Evelyn, there will be many things I don't understand in the future that will require your help." Scene change, Evelyn and I quickly arrived at the Renfei Dragon's nest. This marked the official beginning of the White Dragon Knight's initiation ceremony. Next, I would search for my flying dragon partner here. At this point, I asked Evelyn, "If I can't find one, does that mean I fail the initiation?" Evelyn confirmed this was true, though she added that the probability of this happening was extremely low. But even so, I was particularly worried whether Horcus and his sister could tame partners that matched their personalities. Suddenly, Evelyn said, "Let's look around first. You might find the one you're looking for quickly." Scene change. Now appearing in view was the Renfei Dragon's strange species, the Tyrant Predator, with its 15-meter body and brown scales. It was a poisonous dragon species among the Renfei dragons. Snake-like in form, the unique poisonous sting at its tail was their lethal weapon. Next was the Blade Dragon species of the Renfei dragons. Though gentle herbivores, the blades on their wings were also extremely damaging weapons. And this was the Speed Dragon species with fire-breathing abilities. They usually moved in groups, small in size, but particularly intelligent. Then Evelyn told me that the 4 dragon species we had just encountered were the dragon types currently being tamed by the White Dragon Knights. When she asked if I had made my choice, my response was vague because before I even came here, I had already made my decision about which one to choose, but I just hadn't seen it yet. This decision traced back to 6 years after the Great Upheaval, when a shadow evil dragon raided the Renfei Dragon's nest, slaughtering over 100 Renfei dragons carefully raised by the White Dragon Knights. 8 villages were burned that day. Dozens of swordsmen died in battle, and it was classified as a level 2 disaster monster. To quickly quell the disturbance, the family head directly dispatched the Demon Dragon and Sword Dragon, 2 powerful figures. As expected, they quickly captured it. The reason it was called the Shadow Evil Dragon was because it possessed the rare ability to hide in shadows. Finding the Shadow Evil Dragon and making it my future partner would definitely be the perfect choice. Suddenly, a commotion from the cliff ahead caught our attention. At the same time, my plan began to take shape. I had finally found that creature. Meanwhile, Urias sat on a high platform, constantly observing the movements of members participating in the initiation ceremony. Just then, Osha found him and said, "You seem very happy." Naturally, Tir ultimately chose my White Dragon Knights. Osha said, "Speaking of Tir, I'm here precisely because of him. I ask you, do you plan to cultivate Tir as an important future member of your forces?" After hearing Osha's words, Urias was somewhat speechless and remained silent for a long time. To this, Osha said it was normal. After all, this concerned the White Dragon Knights and required careful consideration. But she assured Urias not to worry. She wasn't here to poach talent. She was here to give Tir the best development advice. Urias was puzzled about what advice the Plum Palace princess could give to Tir, who had chosen the White Dragon Knights. But in the next second, his expression drastically changed, because Osha said just 3 words: joint warfare. Meanwhile, at the Shadow Evil Dragon's location, it was being surrounded and bullied by other dragon species. Evelyn was very anxious. This has happened dozens of times. It has always been ostracized by the group. Although measures have been taken from the troops' perspective, they haven't worked. This probably has something to do with its unusual birth. I was very puzzled about this, until Evelyn's explanation left me extremely shocked, because it was actually born to Beepul, a male level 1 disaster monster. It seems its rare trait was inherited from Beepul's bloodline, but this level 1 monster resided in the center of the Magic Sea. Why would it appear here and give birth to a child? Evelyn explained that this was also a mystery, and it shouldn't have been born at all. At this point, I asked about the Shadow Evil Dragon's name here. Evelyn said, "It's called Umbra, which means shadow in ancient language. It seems I had one more reason why I had to choose it. I've decided I will make it my partner." With these words, I immediately jumped from the flying dragon. This time, I'll definitely let Umbra experience a different life. I immediately reached into my storage space and threw 4 swords toward the position below. Then I used the skill I had recently acquired, Soul Synchronization, using telekinesis to control all the weapons. Under its effect, its endurance reached a level beyond my imagination. Every move I made at this stage unsurprisingly shocked Evelyn, who was above me. How could this be possible? When did young Master Tir become so proficient with telekinesis and even use it with such a unique feeling? At that moment, looking at Umbra being surrounded, those emotions I had once abandoned suddenly resurfaced. Perhaps out of sympathy for this creature's plight, I involuntarily began to recall. After I reached a safe distance from the ground, I jumped off the sword and imbued my lightning attribute magic into the 4 sword blades. This was also my newly learned skill, Lightning Dragon Pattern. Under their bombardment, the area where Umbra was immediately enveloped by a terrifying electric current. Although I couldn't instantly kill the 4 creatures bullying Umbra, they fled in panic under my pressure. After the threat was eliminated, I walked toward Umbra, but when I asked how it was doing, Umbra bared its teeth at me, then flew away in an unknown direction without looking back. At this moment, Evelyn said, "Its emotions are unstable. If you want to tame it right away, that might be difficult." To this, I cheerfully replied, "I think it needs companionship right now." Although rejected by the group, it still insists on staying in the nest, unwilling to leave. I guess it must be very lonely. After all, compared to physical pain, emotional trauma is much harder to bear. Please, Evelyn, before Umbra flies too far, let's quickly catch up. Scene change. Umbra had now perched on a mountain peak. Looking at its constant panting and the claw marks on its neck, the earlier battle must have had a major impact. Suddenly, Umbra became alert because it saw me again. Evelyn warned me not to push too hard, saying countless people had tried to tame it, but all had failed, with some even getting injured. And given its current state, I interrupted her saying, "Let me handle this. Please help me get some food that Umbra can eat." At that moment, as I got closer, Umbra treated me as an enemy. So I used Drake's Roar to confront it, but my level was clearly higher than Umbra's, causing it to quickly feel fear under the influence of my skill. I immediately seized this opportunity to take out a healing potion and pour it on the wound on its neck. In the blink of an eye, its injuries were healed and some of its strength restored. Seeing Umbra's surprised expression, I actively indicated that this was the treatment I'd done for it. Then I began to read its memories, just as I had guessed. Although Umbra really hated those who bullied it, it truly wanted to be friends with them. In its long solitude, it deeply felt the pain of loneliness. However, Umbra was actually quite cautious about its feelings toward me. The sudden warmth made it unable to accept it immediately. At this point, I smiled at Umbra and said, "Don't be so cautious. I genuinely want to be good to you." While speaking, I began searching in my storage space, because I had already prepared a gift for Umbra, an exquisite gemstone. From Umbra's expression, it clearly really liked this gem, but since it hadn't yet truly accepted me, it could only pretend not to see it. However, when it opened its eyes again, I had already put the gem around its neck. Seeing Umbra's confused expression, I told it this was a welcome gift, and I also promised that if it followed me, there would be plenty more gems like this in the future. Also, I heard you don't like reins and saddles, but you don't know how magnificent and gorgeous it would look with decorative gems on them. Finally, after my continuous persuasion, Umbra finally accepted me. Meanwhile, at the Basque workshop, Kelson felt something was off, feeling like someone had secretly tampered with his vault. That's right, that gem was what I took from Grandma's vault. I'll just consider it a spokesperson fee, she surely won't mind. At this moment, after the system notified me that I had tamed Umbra. I also mastered a new skill, called Umbra's Trust. Although the proficiency was only 1%, as long as it increased, I could more successfully develop Umbra's potential. Also, whenever I wrote it, I would gain an additional 10% combat boost. After 2.5 hours had passed, Evelyn finally returned from hunting. But suddenly, she was stunned by the scene before her, because she saw me and Umbra embracing. She said, "What exactly did you do to it? It has never shown this kind of behavior before." Hearing this, I responded, "This is obviously due to my personal charm." Evelyn didn't believe a word I said, and I didn't plan to keep fooling her. I said, "Actually, I just healed its emotional wounds, and gave it what it loves most. But the result is good regardless." Now Evelyn doesn't need to worry about Umbra anymore. In the next second, I directly sat on Umbra's back. This terrified Evelyn, who said, "Even if you are now life and death partners, you haven't received any flight training, and without reins and saddles, forcibly riding it would be suicidal." I dismissed Evelyn's words. After all, she had no idea about my newly acquired skill, which would help me perfectly control Umbra. And so, I completed my first dragon flight. Next, I told Umbra to take me to the place it wanted to visit most. Scene change. We quickly crossed Renfei Dragon's Nest and arrived at the northern Winter Mountains. To my surprise, there was an unknown cave at an altitude of 10,000 meters. It seems that despite my past life's multiple missions to the Winter Mountains, I hadn't achieved 100% exploration of this place. Now, looking at the place Umbra chose, I was certain it really loves shiny things. But then I accidentally spotted an extremely dangerous plant not far from my vision, called Spirit Return Grass. It was a unique plant from the depths of the magic sea, growing on moonlight and an unparalleled tonic for demons. I never expected the Winter Mountains would grow Spirit Return Grass filled with demon power. But one thing I didn't understand, dragons and demons were naturally opposed, so how could Umbra accept living here? To be safe, I immediately burned all of it. My action directly triggered Umbra's displeasure, and it roared at me. To this, I responded, "Apart from that plant, I won't touch anything else here." But just as I finished speaking, the scene before me instantly left me stunned. I hurriedly moved closer for a careful look. This corpse appeared to have been dead for at least a decade. But why hadn't it shown severe signs of decay? Could it be that this person's magical power was extremely powerful in life, allowing the body to barely maintain until now? But who would lock such a master here to fend for themselves? Though there were many questions, this wasn't what I should focus on today. I'd come back to investigate properly when I had time. Just then, the corpse behind me suddenly emitted a shrill laugh, then opened its huge mouth and bit fiercely toward my neck. At that moment, even though I sensed the killing intent in time, the words from its mouth made me freeze. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Umbra kicked it away. Otherwise, even if I had successfully evaded, I would have been grazed. Then Umbra unleashed Dragon's Fury toward the corpse, trying to suppress it with pressure. But obviously the opponent's level was far higher than Umbra's, and Dragon's Fury had no effect at all. Seeing the corpse's attack coming again, I was shocked once more. It had been continuously repeating my father's name, and now it even mentioned the Black Dragon. To protect Umbra from harm, I quickly moved to control its mouth. Unexpectedly, the corpse suddenly changed its attack direction and bit my wrist, as it uttered unforgivable again from its mouth. I became more certain of one thing: its imprisonment here must be related to my father and the Black Dragon. Meanwhile, Evelyn charged toward me with her sword raised, under her sword technique's continuous piercing. The corpse was directly beheaded and lost its vitality. Then Evelyn hurriedly asked about my injuries. The situation didn't seem good. I said, "I'm sorry, I was careless." After speaking, my brain continuously sent me poison warnings, and my mind began to blur. This wasn't ordinary corpse poison. If I couldn't find an antidote immediately, I probably wouldn't live long. Evelyn understood the severity of the poison and suggested returning to the White Dragon Knight's headquarters for treatment. But Umbra directly roared and screamed at Evelyn, then used its head to bump her, clearly disagreeing with the suggestion. Evelyn, anxious to save me, didn't notice this. She said, "I have no ill intentions. I'm trying to save your partner." Suddenly, I said, "Evelyn, wait a moment. Let me talk to Umbra." I asked, "Do you have a way to detoxify me?" Umbra indeed nodded. I said, "Good. I'll entrust my life to your treatment." The next second, Evelyn objected first, saying without urgent action I would die, as this corpse poison was mixed with demon power. I said, "I know, but even if we go back, if it's not handled properly, my survival rate would only be 30%. So I think I need to trust Umbra. Umbra knows this cave, and must have fought with this corpse multiple times. So in this process, it must have mastered methods to deal with this type of poison. Evelyn, don't worry, just trust Umbra. And thank you, Umbra." Afterward, Umbra brought over the Spirit Return Grass, crushed a crystal with its claws, and placed these two items together. Seeing this, Evelyn asked, "Do you want me to mix them and feed them to him?" Hearing this, Umbra nodded frantically, although not knowing if this was reliable. Evelyn didn't hesitate at all. She took them and began to catalyze them with magic. Finally, she made a liquid and let me drink it. Seeing the situation not improving, Evelyn and Umbra were extremely worried. But soon, a terrifying magical power suddenly burst from my heart. It was the dragon's heart. Evelyn was also shocked. These two items really had a detoxifying effect. At this moment, the lightning attribute magic I released began to change from yellow to black. This was a phenomenon never seen before. At the same time, at the headquarters of the White Dragon Knights, Urius was furious, because his subordinates had reported extremely bad news. Sure enough, whenever something good happened around me, something bad would always correspond to it. Is this how the heavens treat me? And regarding what the subordinates said, the 5th squad of the White Dragon Knights on a mission was completely wiped out. On the other side, I, who was poisoned, turned misfortune into blessing and got a chance for body cleansing. But this opportunity ability should only be possible for those under 5 years old. Plus, it required dozens of strong individuals with high magic power to refine together for 7 days and 7 nights. The reason I could get this opportunity was because too many coincidences stacked together. First was the deadly poison that was highly likely to take my life. Second, even though the corpse was dead, the magic power contained in its body was still quite strong. Magic power rushed into my body through the wound. Third was that I ingested the demon power accumulated by the corpse for more than a decade. Finally, it relied on Umbra's special secret method. All these factors combined created an incredible balance. It neither let me be harmed by the corpse poison, nor did it let me become a demon from absorbing too much demon power. And after the body cleansing process was completed, I suddenly woke up. Evelyn quickly supported me and asked about my physical condition. To this, I responded that she shouldn't worry too much. I was completely fine now. Evelyn finally sighed in relief. If something bad had happened to me, she probably wouldn't live long either. After this, I opened my attribute panel. It not only showed that I had undergone the baptism of body cleansing, but also gained the trait of the Shadow Evil Dragon. But there was also a warning that if I didn't manage it properly, I might become the next Shadow Evil Dragon, after absorbing most of the power. My power increased by 85 points, which was incredibly good. In addition, I realized something. The reason the spirit return grass I ate didn't have demon power was because the crystals in this cave were pure energy condensation, and this energy could dilute demon power. It was also fortunate that I trusted Umbra, otherwise I probably would have died. Now I not only had the complete form of Ragnar's descendant, but also received body cleansing and the Shadow Evil Dragon trait. From now on, my growth rate would definitely be beyond anyone's imagination. But now the key question was, who exactly was this corpse? While I was pondering, Evelyn suddenly discovered something unusual on the rock wall. Look, there seems to be something like a diary written on this wall. From the handwriting, I guess the person in life was definitely as powerful as the current family head. The diary began, after being defeated by Tir and the Black Dragon. I could only come here to barely survive, but it seems my body doesn't want to let me have revenge. At the same time, seeing this, I recalled the moment my arm was bitten. It seemed his death was related to my father and the Black Dragon. Then the diary continued. It seems because my magic core was injured by the Black Dragon, my body began to deteriorate at an accelerated rate. But in order to survive and carry out my revenge plan, I could only eat the spirit return grass that might allow me to survive in another form. In the end, my idea was wrong. I ingested too much demon power, and my consciousness began to be possessed by demon power. So knowing that I couldn't take revenge in this life, I decided to leave everything I had in this cave and refine my beloved sword, making it the shackle to restrain me after I became a demon. If someday someone finds this place, please take everything I have. The only request is to avenge me. When Evelyn and I saw what this powerful person had left behind, we were stunned, because the content written further described the long-lost Phantom Sword technique and the Storm Divine technique. So this person was actually Ragnar's legendary figure, who could freely use the power of wind, the wind god, Tir Ragnara. But he was also a tragic hero. 40 years ago, he fought against my father for the position of family head until the last moment. But why was there also writing about the Black Dragon? Could it be? Suddenly, my thoughts were interrupted by Evelyn, who knelt on one knee. I asked her who she was kneeling to. It couldn't be me. Evelyn gave me a negative answer. Even though Lord Hetok was exiled after being defeated by the family, he still remains the legitimate heir of Ragnar. I just harmed him, which is a serious crime that must be punished by death, so Evelyn's words were interrupted by me. The person you just killed was no longer Ragnar. He was just a demon that had lost human consciousness. And you acted to save me, the heir. Even if there is guilt, it's offset by merit. But everything that happened here today must be kept secret from outsiders. Despite what I said, Evelyn still felt it was improper. So I suggested she become the descendant of the Wind God and inherit everything he left behind. My words stunned Evelyn, as the Wind God's secret techniques could rival the current 9 dragons. I said, this really doesn't matter. Also, didn't you say you wanted to become the sword that accompanies me for life? Then you should seize this opportunity to become even stronger. Otherwise, you'll hold me back later. Afterward, Evelyn swore eternal loyalty to me. I agreed to her following me and vowed to make her my first sword. And so, time quickly arrived at the end of the initiation ceremony. And at the headquarters of the White Dragon Knights, Holkus was boasting that he was the first to find a partner, unlike me who still had no news. Unexpectedly, after just 2.5 seconds of pride, his expression froze. What is this situation? What exactly did Tir bring back? At the same time, the veteran members of the White Dragon Knights also criticized my behavior as inappropriate, because in their knowledge, Umbra was an unruly beast. They said, I thought this year had a genius-level recruit, but it turns out the captain was exaggerating. Only Holkus and Erica, the brother and sister, knew the extraordinary nature of this dragon. I was led by Evelyn to the registration officer for the initiation ceremony to sign. But Evelyn had a question. Urias had said he would be waiting here, so why couldn't they see him? To this, the blonde man who had saved me earlier explained that the captain had suddenly received urgent news, so he temporarily returned to the office. Just as he finished speaking, Urias descended from the sky riding a dragon. He said, everyone listen up. I know you've just completed the initiation ceremony and haven't had time to rest properly, but now there's an urgent situation, and you will all be deployed to Branchio Fortress. It seems the inevitable has come, and we must immediately enter enter actual combat. However, Edward, you are too impatient. You actually attacked the Dragon Slayer sword so quickly. So next, I'll reluctantly take your head. The Dragon Slayer's sword was a veteran among 10,000 swords. It was also the only sword feared by the most powerful Ragnar family. Legend had it that whoever possessed it could achieve dragon slaying. But today, during the transportation of the Dragon Slayer's sword, it was targeted by thieves. The mastermind was Edward, who wanted to get the Dragon Slayer sword and launch a major rebellion against Ragnar to avenge Eswin, who had died not long ago. After Urius issued the emergency assembly order, everyone would be deployed to Branchio Fortress. Those veteran members were racking their brains but couldn't understand what was going on. So a man asked, "Captain, what major incident has happened that even new members must participate in this emergency mission? They haven't even been trained yet." Hearing this, Urius immediately explained that Captain Trina of the 5th Squad and the 14 members under his command had all disappeared. This sudden news made my scalp tingle. Trina was a senior knight with great prestige in the White Dragon Knights, a veteran knight to whom even Urius would bend his knee for advice. But according to my past life's memory, Trina had lived until retirement. Could this also be due to my changing the historical trajectory? Then, Urius continued to add, according to Black Snow's real-time report, they predict that the probability of the 5th Squad's death is 89%. Even if they're still alive, they're in a state where they can't continue to execute the mission. So I want to form a temporary team with the members of the 5th Squad and those without missions to continue executing the task assigned to Trina. Urius gave the position of mission leader to Evelyn and reminded her that there were 2.5 hours until the mission started. She must complete basic training for the new members before then. Before leaving, Urius said, although I don't think Trina and his team will die, even if their lives aren't threatened. We must avenge them. We must let them taste the fury of our White Dragon Knights. Then I recalled Trina's assigned mission to deal with the Black Skull Gang, who had hijacked a merchant team being transported to Ragnar. But in fact, this incident was merely a diversion. Their real purpose was to steal the transported treasure, the Dragon Slayer's sword. In the past life, Edward relied on this sword to launch the largest rebellion in Ragnar's history. However, compared to the previous history, the current progress seems to have changed a lot. So to verify if it was caused by my existence, I had to go and confirm in person. At the same time, I also triggered a hidden mission in the system. I needed to obtain the Dragon Slayer's sword by all possible means. Just like that, time quickly passed and 3 hours went by. But the sentry on duty at Branchio Fortress noticed something strange. He saw that today's moon seemed different. Little did he know that these black spots were all people from the White Dragon Knights. By the time he realized and wanted to sound the alarm, it was already too late. A projectile from the sky immediately sent him away from this world. Then, Evelyn gave the order, "Everyone, throw down all the ammunition you brought. Don't think anything is wasted." And as countless ammunition fell one by one, most areas of Branchio Fortress were quickly bombed into ruins. The lead duty officer immediately ordered everyone to hide in the fortress, or they would all die here today. But how could the White Dragon Knights let them have their way? Landing on the land, they surrounded those trying to escape. "Capture them all. Don't let a single one escape. Let them know the price of provoking our White Dragon Knights is sending them to hell to meet their ancestors." On the other side, in the nearby forest, a man was running south with the Dragon Slayer's sword. He said, "Although they promised to hold back the White Dragon Knights, I still have doubts. Fortunately, I was foresighted. As long as I deliver this sword, the task given to me by that lord will be completed." But in the next second, he was pierced through the chest by a sword. The person who drew the sword to execute him was a member of Edward's team. He had received an urgent order: kill without mercy anyone who knew of this matter and was unimportant. Then he took the Dragon Slayer's sword to his superior. After a simple verification, it was confirmed. This sword was indeed the legendary Dragon Slayer's sword. Now that the task of stealing the treasure sword was complete, their next step was to execute the annihilation plan. However, the bombarded Branchio Fortress in the distance had not yet met the cloaked man's expectations. They had to wait until all members of the White Dragon Knights had landed before ordering the subordinates behind, who were already prepared with artillery shells, to begin firing. He would absolutely not let pass any obstacle to the Troyman family's ascent to kingship. On the other side, after nearly half an hour of siege battle, all members of Branchio Fortress were controlled, completing Urius's task so easily. I was skeptical, finding it hard to believe these guys could wipe out the experienced and powerful 5th Squad. To investigate, I quickly used the soul synchronization skill on some enemy corpses and learned shocking news. They all knew about the secret mission to steal the Dragon Slayer's sword, but none had seen even a shadow of the sword. This was certainly reasonable for ordinary soldiers, but obviously not for officer-level personnel. As such, I felt something bad was definitely about to happen. At this time, a veteran female member with glasses asked, "What's wrong with you? Is there something troubling you, or have you made some new discovery?" Before I could respond, another veteran, the blonde man, interrupted, "I guess he's a bit nervous because this is his first combat mission." Then he told me this was all very normal and hoped I could adapt quickly. But I never paid attention to him. I was constantly thinking about the suspicious points. In the next second, I suddenly had a flash of insight about the worst possible outcome. To verify my guess, I didn't dare delay, and immediately ran toward the direction I was thinking of. Seeing me so emotional, The blonde man was completely confused. What's wrong with Tir? The glasses girl thought after consideration that I ran away because I disliked being held. While these two were speculating, I had already begun my formal action. After I drew my sword and slashed at the fortress wall, the glasses girl and others were attracted by the commotion I created, and they happened to see an astonishing sight with me. Because around the wall, countless explosives and incendiaries were secretly buried underground. We must quickly tell the other teammates to leave immediately, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Just as I finished speaking, a black shell was already racing toward my position, hitting the pile of explosives perfectly. Everyone run quickly, we don't have much time. At the same time, at the source of the shell firing, the leading cloaked man was directing his subordinates to detonate all the explosive barrels buried in Branchio Fortress at the fastest speed. Absolutely cannot let the people of the White Dragon Knights leave alive, especially Tir Ragnara. This was also for him to rest in peace after death. The person the cloaked man referred to was Eswin, whom I had beheaded before. His mother was really sick. Instead of burying Eswin in a grave, she held the already rotting corpse every day and comforted it. Mom knows you must be suffering, but don't worry, I will definitely make them bring back Tir's head for you to see. Meanwhile, on Evelyn's side, she was leading the White Dragon Knights to hunt down the remaining fleeing Black Skull remnants. Evelyn still found it hard to believe that the 5th squad led by Trina could be executed by such small soldiers, so she concluded that there must be another conspiracy and there must be someone powerful behind it. But while Evelyn was dazed, she suddenly felt her vision was obscured by something. Fortunately, she reacted quickly and jumped to avoid it, thus avoiding being hit by the incoming shell. It only damaged her clothes a little bit. Little did she know that the truly terrible thing was yet to come. As Evelyn looked up, countless shells were racing toward their position at Branchio Fortress. Everyone quickly find cover and hide, and always pay attention to any movement in the sky. And as it slid down, I and the blonde man and others successfully rendezvoused with Evelyn and her team. So, as the temporary squad leader, Evelyn immediately gave us the order to retreat. But I was stunned by a system pop-up, because the moment I opened the lightning gate, the restrictions in my brain were removed, and my thinking speed and sensory organs were enhanced multiple times. To verify my guess, I activated the soul synchronization skill. In the next second, I could read the inner thoughts of objects around me. Previously, I had to rely on touch, but now I could do it from a distance. Suddenly, Evelyn said, "What are you standing there for? Now is not the time to think about other things. Quickly retreat with me." But I firmly grabbed Evelyn's hand, preventing her from carrying out this action. Evelyn was confused. "What are you doing? The situation no longer allows us to remain here." To this, I calmly responded, "The safest way to survive now is to return to Branchio Fortress." My words left Evelyn stunned for a while, but after my explanation, Evelyn quickly ordered the rest of the team to follow my steps. Holkus was very confused. Having just run out of there, why were they going back in? But despite this, they still chose to trust me. The blonde man said, 21 lives, including yours, are in your hands. We will temporarily follow you unconditionally. I explained, if we run outside the fortress now, even if we don't die, we'll be seriously injured, and we might also fall into the enemy's ambush. And I have a basis for saying this, because in a fragment of a fallen shell, I read the inner thought of an enemy. They definitely think outside the fortress is safer, not knowing that hiding inside the fortress might save their lives. Besides this, I also understood one thing, that I could completely use the enhanced version of soul synchronization to help my companions survive. At this moment, I could clearly know which location had explosive barrels buried, which location would be hit by shells next. Finally, I excluded all dangers, and found a path to continue escaping. But when we reached the end of the road, everyone was dumbfounded. This was actually a dead end. Then came complaints from teammates, with some people begging me to think of another way. However, before I could explain, the rock wall above suddenly collapsed, and so we were buried by the piles of falling debris. On the other side, the cloaked man's ammunition was now completely exhausted, so he decided to begin executing the final plan: attack Branchio Fortress in its ruined state, to avenge their poor young master Eswin and bring back Tir's head. However, the cloaked man could never have imagined that under my careful calculation. The collapsed position didn't take our lives at all. We had fallen into the fortress's secret underground chamber. At the same time, we also found 2 Black Skull remnants here, as well as the missing companions locked in cages. The members of the 5th squad led by Trina, after binding the 2 enemies. Evelyn led people to unlock the shackles restricting Trina and his team's movements. And in the time that followed, Trina told the whole story of their ordeal. Learning that the mastermind was a marshal of Ragnar, Evelyn was shocked. Although I thought it might be someone internal, I never thought it would be him, seeing that everyone was affected by momentary anger. Trina soothed, "Don't get excited. Our current strength is not enough to fight against those people." So Trina suggested quickly passing the message to Black Snow, who was outside supporting. No one present had any objection, except me, who raised doubts. I guess Black Snow waiting outside has already met with a tragic end. Otherwise, they would definitely come to the fortress to find us. I suggest we continue to hide here. After all, to ensure no information leaks out, those guys will definitely come here to confirm our status. So, if we hide in the ruins, we completely have the possibility of getting a winning opportunity. After hearing what I said, Trina's expression suddenly became solemn. I didn't expect this kid to successfully open the lightning gate at this age. It seems the White Dragon Knight's newly recruited member is quite good. Then, Trina ordered, "Everyone listen up. We absolutely cannot sit and wait for death. From now on, we will completely follow this kid's thinking to launch our counterattack So, we decided to continue hiding in the fortress ruins, waiting for the enemy to come inspect and confirm the bodies. And the situation unfolded exactly as I had anticipated. Ragnar's military marshal, who had planned this attack, was leading his subordinates to search every corner of the fortress. But he soon became confused, because neither he nor his subordinates could find any bodies of the White Dragon Knights. They only found the bodies of Black Skull members. Just as the marshal was pondering what was going on, two subordinates standing behind him were suddenly killed in an instant. Before the marshal could turn around and react, a sharp sword suddenly thrust out from the ruins beneath his feet. Although he fortunately managed to draw his sword and dodge the fatal attack, his left cheek was still struck and wounded. Seeing that his attacker was Evelyn of the White Dragon Knights, the marshal immediately launched a counterattack. However, his intentions had already been seen through by Evelyn. Evelyn stomped hard on his chest, not only causing the marshal's slash to miss, but also allowing her to create a controllable distance between them. When the marshal realized the entire unit had fallen into the White Dragon Knight's ambush, he shouted to his remaining subordinates. Little did he know it was already too late. Some subordinates were seriously wounded from sneak attacks, while others were killed outright. At this moment, Evelyn coldly said, "I find it hard to believe it's actually you, but according to Ragnar's law, Article 360, you must be executed on the spot for the crime of treason." After these words, Evelyn continued to engage with the marshal. For a while, the two fought with neither gaining the upper hand. Meanwhile, the marshal was very puzzled, not understanding how these people had survived the bombing. But this distraction, apart from affecting his emotions, also gave Evelyn the opportunity to break the stalemate. Evelyn forcefully knocked aside the marshal's sword, followed up quickly, and executed a horizontal slash. To prevent the enemy from having time to breathe, Evelyn launched multiple piercing thrusts in succession, leaving the marshal with no strength to fight back. Seeing the enemy leader defeated, Evelyn shouted, "You traitors, stop your pointless resistance. Our ambush plan succeeded. You have absolutely no chance of winning. So if you surrender voluntarily, I promise your lives won't end today." Suddenly, the marshal, now unable to resist, gave an order to his surviving subordinates. "Everyone listen, use the secret weapon." Trina and the other veteran officers seemed to have already sensed the enemy's plot. Only I had no idea what this so-called secret weapon was. But I quickly understood. The next second, the guy I had beaten to near death suddenly revived and attacked me again. Even though I reacted quickly enough to defend and block, seeing his red face and nearly bursting blood vessels, I understood that the enemy's secret weapon was using forbidden techniques, blood reversal, sacrificing their own life force to dramatically enhance their physical abilities. And while I was momentarily stunned, he suddenly punched me, sending me flying dozens of meters away. At the same time, an even more troublesome problem followed. Looking at the increasing number of enemies in the sky above, I knew they were likely coming for me. But before I could counterattack, the veteran officer, as my senior, actually stepped forward to shield me from the barrage of sword strikes. Even at the end of his life, he told me to run and not look back. I looked at the senior who sacrificed himself for me, filled with guilt, but also gritting my teeth in anger. You guys really have a death wish. In the blink of an eye, those 9 enemies were annihilated under my combination technique. At the same time, to prevent more teammates from being injured, I decided to open the Thunder Gate and end this battle in one go. As I charged up again, I could clearly feel its power rising to a whole new level. The next second, enemies within a 1,000-meter radius died under my slash. I even managed to perfectly avoid my teammates to prevent them from being affected. Seeing this, everyone except Evelyn was shocked by this area attack. Some felt ashamed, others were filled with admiration. When the dust settled, multiple terrifying sword slash marks were left on the ground. But to my surprise, that marshal had somehow survived my enhanced combination technique. Suddenly, he stood up forcefully, thinking to himself, even if the entire army is destroyed today, Tir Ragnara, that bastard, must not escape unscathed. At that moment, I was in excruciating pain all over my body due to the overexertion, unable to stand. Originally, I had wanted to try breaking through to the 4th dragon slash after opening the Thunder Gate, but ultimately failed. At the same time, I felt a powerful killing intent from behind. When I turned my head to see who it was, I found it was the marshal lunging at me. He clearly intended to exhaust his remaining life to self-destruct and take me down with him, but now I didn't even have the strength to escape. Just when I thought I was going to die here, Evelyn appeared in front of me in the blink of an eye and used the wind god's secret technique she learned in the mountains, Wild Hurricane, directly shredding the approaching marshal in mid-air. To prevent his self-destruct sequence from activating, Evelyn made a great leap to pursue him, then used another wind god's secret technique, Whirlwind. The technique looked weak, but the whirlwind force that appeared out of nowhere had already neutralized the self-destruct energy. And so, with Evelyn defeating the marshal, the last enemy, the White Dragon Knights achieved complete victory in this battle. At last I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, the sun rose, and my comrades in the sunlight looked very happy, all thanking me for saving their lives. Without my sacrificial help, they would have had a hard time dealing with such enemies. This outcome was exactly what I wanted most in this life. At this moment, the veteran officer Trina was helped over to me, asking when I had learned these techniques. Though I wanted to tell the truth, my secret as a reincarnator couldn't be revealed to them yet, so I made up a convenient lie to get by. I had finally completed the mission assigned by the system, retrieving the stolen Dragon Slayer's sword. For Ragnar, who had dragon bloodline flowing in his veins, this sword was his nemesis. But if one couldn't unlock its mysteries, then this dragon sand sword couldn't even match an ordinary blade. Now that the dragon sand sword was in my hands, I couldn't possibly hand it over to Edward to initiate a family rebellion. Just then, a strong burning sensation suddenly came from the sword's blade. Realizing something was wrong, I quickly let go of it. Then I looked at my palm, which was covered in wounds. It seemed the Dragon Sand Sword wasn't named arbitrarily. It truly had an antagonistic relationship with the Ragnar family. However, I had done some research on the historical origins of the Dragon Sand Sword. It was a relic from ancient mythological times, like a ghost, not easily grasped by human hands. If someone unlocked the mysteries of the Dragon Sand Sword, they would be granted mysterious powers like heroes in mythology. The reason Edward had successfully rebelled against Ragnar in my previous life was that he must have unlocked the secrets of the Dragon Sand Sword. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but smile, realizing that the place that had just flashed in my mind held the answers I sought. As for the Dragon Sand Sword, I would temporarily store it in my storage space. At that moment, there came a knock at the door behind me. It was Evelyn, saying she had been sent by the commander to find me, that there was something important to be conveyed to me. The story of what happened goes back to a meeting 10 minutes ago. Urias said, "I'm glad you've returned alive, but why suddenly submit a retirement application? This doesn't seem like your style." Hearing this, Trina replied helplessly, "In the last mission, I suffered irreversible injuries. With my old body as it is now, I probably won't last much longer on the battlefield. So after careful consideration, I've decided to retire to my hometown for my remaining days, and also mourn my fallen comrades." Hearing this, Urias pretended to be nonchalant, waving his hand saying, "Well, no one can stop someone as stubborn as you." To this, Trina responded with thanks. However, he had something else he wanted to discuss with Urias before leaving, regarding Tir. She said, "Tir has actually managed to open the Thunder Gate at his current age." Urias said in shock, "Then hasn't he already crossed the boundary between ordinary and extraordinary?" Trina gave an affirmative reply. "I could hardly believe it when I first saw it, since Tir doesn't seem like the type with natural talent. It's as if he forcibly opened a tightly locked door. In short, he stepped into a realm that shouldn't have belonged to him, and this realm is ridiculously vast, so—" Before Trina could finish, Urias interrupted, "So we must find a way to help Tir fill this realm." Trina nodded and said, "I have high hopes for Tir. Whether he can become your next successor depends on you." After this, Evelyn was dispatched to summon me to meet with Urias. Urias said, "Trina tells me you made a great contribution in this unexpected mission." Hearing this, I replied that, without the cooperation of my seniors, my plans couldn't have been successfully implemented. To this, Urias didn't continue the topic, understanding my modesty. He continued, "Tir, how far has your martial path developed?" Was he asking about my current combat level? I said, "Perhaps battles have become easier than before." Upon hearing this, Urias directly gestured with his hand. "I'm not just asking about your combat skill level, but also wanting you to express your unique view of the world through your sword." I was confused. This was the first time I'd heard such a strange question. So I said, "I'm not quite sure. I'm just imitating my father's swordsmanship in my training." Urias smiled and said, "Every strong person starts this way before developing their complete form." And the moment his words fell, Urias immediately drew the sword from his back, his body emanating a terrifying pressure. The next second, the real environment was suddenly enclosed by glass fragments. This was the alternate dimension created by Urias. Seeing this, I was frozen in shock. This was completely different from what Sword Dragon Osha had shown me before the second test. Was this what Urias wanted to express to me just now? Suddenly, I felt an extremely uncomfortable sense of suffocation. Looking from afar, Urias was now raising his magical power to its peak state. Then he began to dance chaotically, whether side slashing, horizontal cutting, or downward chopping. Every move Urias displayed was extremely powerful. Not only did it stir up tremendous waves, but even the air in the alternate dimension began to shatter like glass. The scene truly left me stunned, as it was my first time witnessing the true power of the demon dragon. After the demonstration, Urias asked me, "What did you see on my martial path?" I answered, "Power and destruction." Hearing this, Urias said with satisfaction, "Completely correct. That is the essence of demon. Direct and decisive. Even if it ultimately shatters, it will be a straight line, able to penetrate and destroy everything it touches." Then Urias continued, "What do you think of Osha's swordsmanship?" After pondering for a moment, I said, "Very elegant and beautiful." Urias nodded meaningfully and said, "Osha's swordsmanship contains the essence of life, so it is very meaningful. A seed from germination, to growth, to flowering, can represent life itself. It is slow and gentle, constantly changing, yet never ceasing to extend outward." Hearing this, I thoroughly understood the true meaning of the martial way. Even among the 9 dragons, the interpretations of swordsmanship differed greatly. Seeing me deep in thought, Urias couldn't help but smile. "Life and death, gentleness and violence. Do you think the meanings of our 2 swordsmanship styles are completely opposite?" I said, "Aren't they?" Urias dispelled the alternate dimension and said, "If I told you directly, it wouldn't be fun. Come tell me when you figure out the answer." Before leaving, Urias tossed me a book. As I was wondering what kind of book it was, Urias explained, "These are conversations between Osha and me about the truth of swordsmanship." Upon hearing this, I said in shock, "You mean—" Urias interrupted me. "That's right. Although this is extremely rare. If it's you, I don't find it surprising. From now on, you will be the joint disciple of Osha and me." Meanwhile, at Rose Palace, due to Ursulin's mother's unreasonable actions, she was being choked by Edward, who demanded, "Why did you steal my seal? Why issue fake orders in my name? Even if you wanted to kill Tir Ragnara, why did you have to offend the White Dragon Knights? Do you have any idea how serious this is? This directly affects the grand plans that the Troyman family has been preparing for so long." Emil said angrily, "I just want to tear them all into pieces, to satisfy my anger and appease my son's soul. This was the best solution I could think of. Literally Little did Emil know her words would soon become her final struggle before being strangled. At this point, Edward responded, "Just because some trash-level child died, you forgot your true position. Now the Dragon Slayer sword is also lost. The key to our entire plan no longer exists. From now on, you are no longer part of the Troyman family." Seeing Ed's ferocious gaze, Emil immediately lowered her head uncontrollably, because it reminded her too much of her father. Before leaving, Edward ordered his subordinates, "That woman is useless now. Lock her where no one can see her." After Edward walked out the door, he grew increasingly angry, saying, "If it weren't for that bastard, my carefully planned rebellion wouldn't have turned to nothing. Tir Ragnara, just you wait. I swear I'll kill you with my own hands." Meanwhile, I had become the joint disciple of Urias and Osha. Although joint disciples were quite rare in the Ragnar royal court, Urias said it wasn't surprising if it was me. Everything from the awakening ceremony to my current performance was proof enough. The confirmation of the joint disciple plan actually began with the White Dragon Knight's induction ceremony. At that time, Osha suddenly approached Urias, who was supervising the exam. She stated she could provide me with the best development plan, which was joint warfare. Osha's words made Urias ponder for a long time, but in the end, he agreed. However, he still had to voice his complaints. "Tir has already chosen the White Dragon Knights, yet you insist on making someone who already belongs to me a joint heir." Osha smiled contentedly. "That's because my jealousy is at work. Besides, you really can't deny this decision. It will serve as a powerful catalyst on Tir's growth path. Moreover, I believe you've already realized that Tir is currently a very promising successor, unmatched by anyone. He grows rapidly within the limits of his talent, and will soon repeatedly hit walls. But when that happens, this plan will help him." The moment Osha finished speaking, her expression suddenly became solemn. Urias said, "If Tir becomes an enemy of Ragnar, then everything we give him will bring great bloodshed to Ragnar. You know the fate of the Bow King. He's a typical example of growing too quickly, ultimately being blinded by power, leading to rebellion." Urias's words made Osha break out in a cold sweat. She said this was a situation she hadn't anticipated. All along, she had thought Urias was simply optimistic about Tir. She said, "Thanks to your reminder, I'm more certain about giving him my all. When the Tir you protect grows without being consumed by greed, then we can be sure he has become someone who cherishes every moment as Ragnar's successor. Then you can give him this book containing everything about me." Scene change. Now I was looking at the book Urias had given me. I was truly surprised inside. I never imagined that one day I would be cultivated as a joint heir by two of the 9 dragons. Seeing that I remained silent, Urias told me not to be overly modest. He said, "The reason we made this decision is because we believe you deserve it." Hearing this, I hurriedly nodded to show I understood. But looking back, my rapid growth since reincarnation was actually thanks to all these people around me. I had never done anything for them, yet they always chose to help me unconditionally. I bowed deeply to Urias and the others, saying, "I will definitely repay your kindness." Hearing this, Urias immediately became excited. He said, "If it's gratitude, there's a way to repay me right now. Have a real man's boxing match with me. I have nothing to do right now, and can also test what level your strength has reached." At this moment, Urias once again displayed his extremely strong pressure. Fighting him in this state, I would probably be dismembered. The next second, Urias attacked me head-on at nearly the speed of light. I had originally wanted to ask Evelyn to quickly save me, to get me out of this situation, but she actually locked the door tight without even looking back. She said, "Sorry, but I must let you experience this precious sparring session with Lord Urias." And so, time quickly arrived at the next morning. Evelyn was in a good mood. She finally unlocked the hundreds of chains securing the door. When she saw my condition, her entire demeanor changed. She said, "Are you okay? It seems Lord Urias went a bit overboard this time." I was utterly speechless. He wasn't just a bit overboard, he was extremely overboard. I almost died. Hearing this, Evelyn quickly changed the subject, saying, "As per your orders, I've already locked him in the underground prison. But are you sure you can just ignore him like this? Although that guy still refuses to reveal any information about who's behind all this." To this, I assured Evelyn not to worry, as I had already prepared everything for the next steps. After hearing my detailed plan, Evelyn was immediately shocked with admiration, and so, time quickly moved to the next day. At this point, I made my way to the Plum Palace training grounds, to visit Osha who lived there. Osha told me there was no need to be so formal, and she eagerly asked if I had received the gift from the magic dragon. I gave an affirmative answer, as this would be tremendously helpful for my future growth. Osha didn't continue on that topic, but instead extended her hand and with a twist. Immediately, magical threads emanating from her palm drew a sword from around the training ground. She said, "I'm glad you like the gift I sent you. From now on, I will personally teach you the most easily overlooked fundamentals of swordsmanship, technique, and artistry. If you can master these completely, you will surely revitalize your swordsmanship, displaying even greater dominating power." After saying this, Osha decided to ask her previous question once more. "Tir, do you truly wish to be my disciple?" I responded, "Before I answer that question, I need to confirm something with you. Are you speaking to me now as the Heavenly Dragon Swordmaster, or as the Princess of Plum Palace?" My words took Osha by complete surprise, but she quickly composed herself and said with a smile, "Not many people know, yet you managed to find out. I won't deny it. The sole heir of the secret bloodline, the Heavenly Dragon Sword passed down 1-to-1. Heavenly Dragon Swordmaster is indeed one of my titles. So, are you asking this to judge my true intentions in taking you as a disciple?" With my intention discovered, I quickly apologized to Osha and said, "Indeed, just as you guessed." Fortunately, Osha didn't think this was a big deal. She had never deliberately hidden this title. Without exaggeration, I was was planning to pass both Empty Flower Rain and the Heavenly Dragon Sword skills to you. Hearing this, I responded, that is truly tempting, but I don't understand why someone like me, merely a bastard son, would be so treasured by you. Before I could finish, Osha lifted my head and said, the reason is simple. You're exactly like Tir when he was young. And I'm not just talking about your appearance, but also that determination to pursue your dreams and ideals in your youth. Whenever I see you, I can't help but recall the moment I fell in love with Tir. He trained hard every day to overcome any test or challenge. Despite facing endless hardships each day, Tir never once entertained thoughts of giving up or changing his principles. So, for this reason alone, how could I stand by and not treasure you? If that satisfies your curiosity, it's time for you to give me your answer. To this, I nodded and said, forgive my bluntness, but I sincerely wish to decline your kindness. The reason for my refusal is that throughout my journey to where I am now, I've had far too many teachers. Upon hearing this, Osha was stunned. She hadn't expected my reason to be this, and regretted not approaching me sooner. Then I continued to explain, all the seniors in the White Dragon Knights, all the friends I met in Training Ground 4, even the enemies I've faced so far, they've all been irreplaceable teacher figures on my path to becoming stronger. My words left Osha in silence. She said, comparing enemies to teachers is indeed unexpected, but why exactly? I firmly replied, because of obstacles. Without the hardships they've given me, how would I have become who I am today? Then I apologized to Osha again, explaining that my sword had already learned to change because of everyone who had ever loved or wronged me. At this moment, Osha showed an awkward yet dignified smile, saying this was truly regrettable. But in the next second, Osha's expression suddenly changed as she looked at me. I said, even if I cannot be your disciple, I would gladly be your godson. You can treat me as your own. Hearing this, Osha could no longer suppress her fondness for me, asking, do you really mean that? The scene shifts, and now Osha is happily enjoying afternoon tea in the courtyard. My answer has given Osha a chance to experience motherhood in her lifetime. Even though heaven didn't allow her to have her own child, now she has Tir, who looks exactly like her husband, agreeing to be her son. The female subordinate said, Grandmaster, you must really like him, don't you? Osha replied, of course I do. I believe this will bring me happiness for the rest of my life. Then Osha ordered the female subordinate before her, please write a letter to the family head regarding Tir's promotion examination. At this, the female subordinate was shocked, and immediately tried to advise Osha to reconsider with extremely agitated words. Forgive my rudeness, my lady, but Tir has only just completed his awakening ceremony. If he receives too much attention at such a young age, he might face extraordinary dangers. Osha gave an affirmative response. I am well aware, which is why I must not waste even a moment of time. Before the great wind blows toward the Ragnar family, I want to give Tir everything I possibly can. Meanwhile, in the White Dragon Knights' underground prison, the captive military marshal said flatly, finally you have come. Just kill me. I have no value left. But rest assured, I haven't revealed any information about the organization. Hearing this, the masked man immediately pulled out 3 throwing weapons, preparing to kill him. The masked man said, please don't hate me. This is all by that person's order. The moment the masked man finished speaking, the 3 darts in his hand shot toward the military marshal's position. Just as the military marshal was preparing to meet his end, an unexpected intervention occurred. The 3 darts were deflected by a wave of green sword energy. This completely shocked the masked man. Before he could think, the area above his head was suddenly broken open. It was Evelyn, who had been lying in wait here all along. Evelyn said, as expected, you really dared to come here and cause trouble. The masked man realized he had fallen into a trap, but everything seemed too late now. Evelyn had no intention of letting the enemy escape unharmed. After all, with her newly learned Wind God's secret technique, such an opponent was no match for her. At this moment, as Evelyn moved closer, the masked man was absolutely terrified. The intelligence he received was that, apart from the high-ranking members of the White Dragon Knights, no other member could threaten his strength. It seemed he needed to find a way to escape quickly. If captured, things would definitely become much worse. However, the masked man's little scheme had already been completely anticipated by Evelyn. Evelyn said, rest assured, there's no way you can escape today. Meanwhile, Evelyn's Wind God's secret technique, Tempest, had successfully hit him, causing him to bleed from all 7 orifices. Seeing that his time was running short, the masked man concentrated all his magic power in his left hand. He wanted to blow himself up, absolutely preventing the White Dragon Knights from obtaining any information about the organization. Just as the masked man's thoughts settled, Evelyn had already moved close to him again. Then Evelyn delivered a heavy palm strike to the Dantian position in his abdomen, saying, why do you all try to do the same thing whenever something goes wrong? The reason you keep failing is because all your decisions have been anticipated by us. The scene changes and time quickly moves to the next day. At this moment, in a small cabin 100 kilometers away from the White Dragon Knights headquarters, Black Snow member Clive is briefing us on yesterday's report. The person Evelyn captured has been confirmed to be from the Snake Season. Snake Season has a sub-organization among the elite clans in the East, the Troyman family. Hearing this, Yuria said, so this basically confirms that we have a mole leaking information. That's right. The reason we chose such a remote location for this meeting is to prevent more information leaks. Then Clive continued, Snake Season is based in an ancient castle in the Kalheim region, and from now on in 2.5 hours they will automatically consider the mission failed, destroy all evidence, and relocate. Therefore, before that happens, we must raid their base and capture them all. After hearing Clive's intelligence briefing, Urius mentioned that he had one more thing to add. I want to make this joint mission Tir's promotion examination. To this, I asked with some surprise, really? After all, I'm just a new member who recently joined. Urius nodded and said, but don't think it will be easy. The difficulty of this promotion exam is is 10 times higher than previous ones. If you want to be promoted to intermediate swordsman, you must complete this mission that could potentially lead to a civil war in Ragnar. In the time that followed, Urias also shifted the topic to the action I had assigned to Evelyn. I heard you had Evelyn monitor the prison because you anticipated that assassin would come, but you can't act on your own without discussing it with your superiors. It's not only against regulations, but also disrespectful. However, since you've already started, see it through to the end. Complete this promotion exam and earn the privilege of independent missions. I couldn't quite process it. I hadn't expected to become the center of everyone's attention so quickly. Next came a new mission issued by the system. Clear the dark ties of the past life, stop their sinister plot. Seeing this, I couldn't help but clench my fist. Clive noticed my reaction and asked if there was anything I didn't understand. I gave a negative response and boldly proclaimed, I will complete this mission no matter what. As for what followed, it was of course the unfolding of the snake season elimination mission. At this moment, in a small forest not far from the enemy camp, Clive was explaining to Evelyn and me about the precautions for this operation. Clive said, to eliminate the possibility of internal spies, the elimination mission will only involve the three of us. Our target is an organization full of assassins, which gives us Ragnar swordsmen an advantage. However, even though the enemy is at a disadvantage, we still cannot be careless. We must stay vigilant no matter what happens. Meanwhile, inside the enemy castle, members of Snake Season were organizing various materials for their operation. The paperwork is basically done. As soon as that guy returns, we can leave immediately. How long has that guy been gone? Less than 2 hours, I think. He should be on his way back. Unexpectedly, during their conversation, a spherical object suddenly flew in through the window. By the time they realized what was happening, the smoke inside had already burst out violently. Not good. We're under attack. At this moment, a black shadow flashed quickly through the smoke. She struck with lightning speed, catching them completely off guard. The person responsible was none other than Clive, the commander of this mission. Seeing that one of them had luckily blocked a fatal blow and was trying to escape, Clive immediately kicked the desk behind him with great force. The power of the kick shattered the target into pieces. Then Clive reported, enemies in the surrounding area have been suppressed, and relevant evidence has been secured. Tir will investigate the basement, and Evelyn and I will handle things here properly. I nodded to indicate I understood, but my thoughts hadn't yet recovered from the scene I just witnessed. Clive was too strong. He took down 3 Snake Season members in less than 2.5 seconds. Then, on my way to the destination, I quickly found the entrance to the basement according to the blueprint provided by Clive. But suddenly, my expression became odd, because I'd just tripped over a red line. Before I could think about what it was, a sharp projectile was already in front of my eyes. Fortunately, my reaction was quick, and I successfully dodged it. Next, faced with a wave of projectiles, I immediately took out my white moonlight blade to defend and slash. After it was over, I touched the ground and used my soul synchronization skill. I began to try to read information about the surrounding area. I discovered that not only were there many traps here, but there were also several Snake Season members lying in ambush in hidden corners. If I just rushed in, even if I wasn't injured, I would be severely beaten. So, I took out several swords from my storage space and used the soul synchronization skill to control them. In addition, I also added my lightning attribute magic power to the swords. Not only did this increase their speed considerably, but it also strengthened their attack power. This directly became a brand new assassination skill for me, which I named Dragon Gate Kill. In this way, I resolved all the enemies ambushing here with just a little magic power. I must say, my current strength is really not bad. Next, I just needed to run to the bottom of these stairs to reach the basement. But with such tight security, the basement must be hiding some unspeakable secret. The scene changes, and what appeared before me at this moment made me break out in cold sweat. There were living people and an altar. The person said in a hushed voice, I didn't expect you, the filthy thing, to spread here. Do you know that this is my precious time for holy prayer? You are really too bold. The moment I saw this guy, I recognized him as a low-level blood priest of the so-called Holy Demon Church. This is a cult that claims the end of the world is approaching. At the same time, the great disaster that befell the future empire, the evil done by the Holy Demon Church, is definitely the greatest. I remember that before the great disaster came, they constantly lured the ignorant to join their ranks, claiming that only their worshipped God could save the world. Seeing my expression, the blood priest said, so you know who I am. To this, I didn't respond, but continued to activate the soul synchronization skill, wanting to read the magic flow in the area. But to my surprise, there was no magic power flowing from the blood priest's body. This means that the energy supporting them is not magic power, but something else. Could it be what those low-level blood priests often talk about, being blessed by their god, or something like that? At this point, the blood priest said to me, I will let you have the honor of becoming a sacrifice to our one true god. As he spoke, with his hands clasped together, a terrifying aura immediately appeared around his body. Then, in the tense moment, the blood priest immediately extended his giant palm and attacked me fiercely. I raised my sword to counterattack, but the sparks from our clash puzzled me. This level of hardness was too unreal, and in the subsequent rounds of attacks, I was basically in a passive position, countering and defending. Even though I could capture the trajectory of his attacks with my naked eye, I still couldn't wound him with my sword. So, in order to cause irreversible damage to him, I directly charged up my magic power and unleashed my strongest slash. Unexpectedly, to my surprise, this slash was actually caught and stopped by his single hand. And while I was stunned, I was grabbed by the blood priest and sent flying with a punch, crashing heavily into the wall behind me. Feeling the pain all over my body, I was extremely confused. How could a low-level character from the Holy Demon Church be so powerful? Although I had thought about using my ultimate move, Dragon Triple Slash, against him, due to the confined environment, I couldn't execute it as I wished, as it could could easily cause the basement to collapse. So what should I do? If I only use close-range slashes, I am not his match. At this moment, I remembered that unanswered question. Life and death, gentleness and violence. Are Osha's and Urias's sword paths really in opposition? Suddenly, while I was pondering, the blood priest pounced at me again, saying, "Stop struggling and accept the master's grace. The god will definitely not shortchange you." However, with his current strength, he still couldn't harm me at all. After dodging the blood priest's attack, I kept moving to create distance while thinking about that question. Suddenly, I had a flash of insight. Life and death seem to have always been on the same path. Death always waits at the end of life, while life often blossoms under the nourishment of death. Overall, they have always existed as a unified force. If they could be gathered into a beam of light, the power they could exert would be the most complete. Seeing that I still wanted to resist, the blood priest taunted, "Why are you so stupid? Haven't you realized yet that your sword has no effect on me at all?" But just as he finished speaking, I used the skill I learned from my father. One-hit kill. The situation was the same as before. This attack of mine was still easily blocked by the blood priest's palm, but his expression became horrified because he felt my attack was as if it had been given life, and so his entire body became riddled with holes, continuously bleeding. As he was sent flying by me, his life also came to an end. Gaining enlightenment through killing, "You are definitely the seed of chaotic evil." His words were cut off by my palm strike before he could finish, and I still wanted to use the soul synchronization skill on him. I must find out the true source of the strange power used by the Holy Demon Church. But at this moment, the surrounding space suddenly began to distort. When I opened my eyes again, my consciousness had arrived in a mysterious space. Obviously, this was completely different from anything I had read so far. At the same time, the system panel suddenly popped up, displaying a series of error codes. Before I could think about what was happening, a flood of warning pop-ups appeared. Warning: a high-level enemy that you cannot see through with the eye of insight has appeared. Please evacuate immediately. After reading the warning, my expression began to turn grim, because at this moment, a creature with multiple eyes appeared before me. It said, "Who dares to disturb my slumber?"